Okay, good morning. Welcome to our General Finance Committee meeting of July 14th, 2021. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. Welcome again. I want to confirm that all members are present, and I do confirm quorum. There are no members absent. I will confirm that the CAO clerk and members of our senior management team and staff are present. And I will advise that the public input on the agenda was invited at the following email address, tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. None was received at that particular, address because of what I'm going to read in a moment here. Email communications were received by the clerk and circulated to members of the committee as follows. Item 5A on today's agenda, discussion regarding parking on Marina Road in the location of the Walker's Point Marina. In support of allowing parking on Marina Road in the vicinity of the Walker's Point Marina, Neil Self, Duncan McGregor, Peter Sherk, Andrew Buck, Patty and Gord Thompson, Lisa Wilson, Tricia Tate, Elizabeth Padden, Pamela Christoph, and John Panichetti. In support of allowing parking on Marina Road and Beaumaris Road, because we're going to be discussing both this morning, Max Jackson. In support of allowing parking on Beaumaris Road, Liz Beattie. In support of maintaining no parking on Marina Road in the vicinity of the Walker's Point Marina, we have Ken and Sandra Hardill, Dave Love, Hillary Cole / Tilly, John Hadfield, Bill Haken, Richard Brown, Monica and John Carr, Sandra Brown, Patricia Hadfield, Susan Judges, Sean Pardy, Linda Shell, Gerard, and Sally Hill Poupe, Linda Gilbert and Carrie Shell, Joan Davey, Heather Becker, Michael Deere, Randy Thompson, Kelty Barnes, Wendy and Paul Filkin, Catherine and Carl Poslins, Beth Dennis, Jill and Arno Vandervoorde, Mike and Rose Robbins, Nancy Milson, and Lynn Green. I apologize for any names I might have referenced in error. Item C, 6C, report on license agreement application 2826746, Ontario Limited, roll 7-8-015 Moon River. In opposition to the license agreement, we have Justin Edwards and Dawson Curry, President, Moon River Property Owners Association. And these are written submissions to the clerk. The chair to read this public notice that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. So I will then move on to, which is item 2 on the agenda. I will acknowledge a supplementary agenda today. It was issued and is issued as follows for the record. To remove the following invited delegations from item 4A, Marina Road and Beaumaris Road parking availability. They are Patty and Gord Thompson, Tricia Tate, Elizabeth Padden, Andrew Buck, Pamela Christoph, and John Panichetti. They will not be delegating. They're here with us, I'm sure, watching. Welcome, but they will not be delegating this morning. Following the posting of the agenda, we've been advised that Lisa Wilson will not be addressing the committee either. Again, welcome, Lisa, if you're there. To add the following public comments to item 6B, report license agreement application 2826746, Ontario Limited, roll 7-8-015 Moon River. We have Michael Flynn, Justin Edwards, and Dawson Curry, President, Moon River Property Owners Association. Additionally, with regard to invited delegations, item 4A, Marina Road and Beaumaris Road parking, the parking availability, the speakers have requested the following order. Carolyn Wales, number 2, Terry Canham, number 3, Peter Sherk, number 4, Laurie Cashmore, number 5, Duncan McGregor. We will proceed in that order. Item number 3, disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any committee members here with any disclosures of pecuniary interest at this time? Committee? Good, seeing none, thank you. We'll proceed to invited delegations. And I just like to say, as the chair, pre all delegations today, and I guess as it relates to a more general comment, um, I have seen and been exposed to much of the communication, obviously all of it, and on a number of these topics. And I want to say that what I've learned in my 3 years of being elected is that this is a completely public process. This is completely transparent. The optics are such that nothing happens without full and open disclosure. So I would say that a year ago, this particular issue of Marina Road was discussed at the General Finance Committee, essentially today, 12 months ago. It was recommended to council the next month. That's all this committee does, is recommend to council. Council then enacts or not the items that are before them. It was pushed forward to council for a review, a discussion. We did that in August. And at that time, council recommended the signs that you currently see there. Then what happened is the signs went up in, I suppose, later in August. And I know I didn't hear anything from anyone. And I'm a Ward A councillor, and I would have been one of the 3 folks that would have been maybe first on the firing line. The signs were erected. Then there was, in September, the third part of our public process is that, in fact, members of the public, through their councillors, can actually pull items out of the agenda that were approved at council that previous month, and for a more fulsome review, a more fulsome discussion. If you're not happy, you're displeased, you don't like the way it went, that's a third opportunity. So that's 3 months, 90 days. Yet nothing happened, and I understand it's not a process that everyone can comprehend, and I'm certainly learning every day, as many of us are. But I would just like that for optics. I'm not going to go into the history of the parking and everything else. That will, I'm sure, be discussed through the delegations. But I appreciate your time on that. And I would ask again, I don't think I need to, but that we all maintain decorum and a level of sensitivity to one another as we delegate and have these discussions this morning. So thank you for that all. I know there are people watching, many. I'm going to first go to Carolyn Wells, and I will say that Carolyn Wells is a Fairhaven cottager. She's going to explain that. She would like to speak to Beaumaris. So each of the delegations, when we bring you to the floor, which I will be inviting Carolyn to come first, she's in the waiting room. You have 5 minutes, please, within that 5 minutes to state your delegation. And we ask you first to include your name and address, if you would. So I think with that, given that, we have Carolyn Wells. Okay, good. So just a little detail. Councillor Roberts has his hand, or Committee Member Roberts, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the delegations are 5 minutes and not 2 minutes. My understanding, they were 2 minutes. Would you?
No, the delegations are 5 minutes in nature. It's the public comment piece that
Okay, thank you.
that are 2 minutes. So thank you for that, sir. Seeing no other comments, Carolyn, I see you on the screen. Welcome this morning, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Looks like we have quite a list of delegations and those watching on YouTube. To the General and Finance Committee, thank you for the opportunity to present in regards to the Beaumaris Road 2-hour parking enforcement matter. I am Carolyn Wales on Island M62, Fairhaven Island in Lake Muskoka, 5 months of the year at Fairhaven and 7 months in Burlington, Ontario. On behalf of those water access property owners who use Beaumaris as a launch and landing point to their properties in this vicinity, we are asking that the 2-hour parking bylaw, which is posted from St. John's Anglican Church to Tondern Road, 200 meters, for approximately 15 to 20 vehicles, be reviewed. This is the only section of Beaumaris Road with parking bylaws. Well, just up the road on Beaumaris, there are 5 to 10 vehicles parked daily for the past 10 months, working on a new build without parking bylaw. Private parking has lengthy wait lists or simply not available. COVID-19 has brought residents to Muskoka as they're able to work remotely on a permanent basis. The Milford Bay Community Center, which does offer 72 hours parking, will be utilized However, if required for longer increments, can the possibility of paid permit parking for X amount of days be an option, which has been very successful in other jurisdictions? Another consideration are those with physical limitations who require accessibility. There are no accessible parking options on Beaumaris Road. There are water access residents on our island and others with physical limitations, and they physically cannot walk the 2 kilometers from the community center if private parking is unattainable. Then there's the safety issue. To walk in the dark to the public wharf certainly infringes on community safety and well-being. I know I, for one, would never do it. In the daytime, not a problem, but anything after dark, I wouldn't feel safe. Islanders and water access property owners, we're a tough and resourceful breed, well recognized as a distinctive part of Muskoka's heritage and image. We know and embrace the challenges that come along with owning water access properties, weather, limited services, lake crossings in all types of conditions, marina boat parking fees, hiring of contractors and repair service is difficult, and fees are always impacted with a premium. Limited Wi-Fi and internet services, and property use for half of the year. Without parking, the real estate value of our properties will be significantly impacted. At this point, we request that council works together with the community members to review this bylaw and utilize transportation assessments that reflect the growing and changing demands of the population and how to serve them moving forward. Our goal is to work inclusively in a wholesome manner with the township to achieve a collaborative resolution to this issue. To quote the Engage Muskoka website, the township is committed to working closely with the community to improve engagement and better guide decision-making on policy, programs, projects, and services. And that's something we'd like to do. Bottom line, private lots are full, and we're looking to engage with the township to reach a constructive solution. Just as a side note, I am an active resident in the community. I am on the committee with Stephanie Mack in regards to the waste bin removal in the township, and I've been involved with Stephanie since 2019, since the get-go of all of this. And it's been a really great, very integrated process with the township. We have the staff, we have Engage Muskoka, we have town halls, community groups, surveys, working with consultants. I can honestly say it's been a very positive scenario working on that. And I think hopefully we can do the same thing with this issue, because obviously it doesn't affect just Beaumaris and other areas, and something that we should look at. We just want to achieve a successful outcome to all of this. And we just would like to work together in a positive way to get this resolved. Thank you.
Well, good, thank you. And as you would know, you are on the public record. Your presentation, I believe, has been sent to our clerk, Cheryl Mortimer,
Yes.
Here at the township. Thank you. And that will be, it certainly will be considered, listened to, noted. And and thank you for your service. I mean, it's when the people work together as a community that we're going to be better. Thank you for that, Carolyn. Really appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Cheers. I'm going to be calling now on our second delegate, Terry Canham, more specifically, I believe, as it relates to Walker's Point Marina Road. Terry, welcome. Terry, are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We had some technical difficulties getting on there, but I guess we are on now.
You're good. Go ahead.
My name is Terry Canham. For 17 years, my family has resided on Stonewall Island, and the practical reality of living on an island means that we don't get the same level of municipal services as those people on the mainland. So access to the mainland via Marina Road becomes a critical lifeline for us to access those missing municipal services. That access was obstructed by the recent introduction of the no parking bylaw. Back in early 20th century, Henry Mencken, who is known as the Sage of Baltimore, stated, "For every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong." Marina Road parking is certainly a complex problem. And undoubtedly, the bylaw was a well-intended and simple solution, but it was indeed the wrong solution. It's the wrong solution for two reasons. One, it contravened township published policy on creating these bylaws. And second, it worsened the overall safety on Marina Road rather than improve it. In the Township Council Policy CGG3, the township committed to a governing style with an emphasis on planning for the future with an understanding of the past. The introduction of this bylaw showed little appreciation for the past, in my opinion. That same policy provides that there should be an emphasis on proactive rather than reactive considerations. Again, the introduction of this bylaw shows the hallmarks of being reactive rather than proactive. Furthermore, in Township Council Policy CGG17, the township committed to try to ensure that its actions are transparent to the public. I believe that the introduction of this bylaw was not sufficiently transparent to the public. So that's the first reason that the bylaw is the wrong solution. The second reason is a matter of safety. Now, the primary reason for the bylaw, as I understand it, was out of concern for emergency access along Marina Road. No reasonable person would deny the importance of that emergency access. But it's our understanding that there has been few, if any, actual incidents of emergency vehicles not getting access along Marina Road. Furthermore, there are multiple aspects to safety. Emergency access is only one. From the Oxford Thesaurus, similar words for safety include well-being, welfare, and security. These other facets of safety are being compromised by this new bylaw. The welfare of pedestrians are being put at risk. You can picture families with young children as seniors will now have to walk along dirt roads to access remote parking lots, while SUVs and contractor vehicles are driving dangerously by. The security of people is being put at risk. When a young woman returns from work from Gravenhurst, say, late in the evening, and now has to park at a remote parking lot and walk along a dark road at night to get to the marina for safe pickup. And lastly, the well-being of numerous island families is being compromised as our access to municipal services on mainland get hindered. I'm not sure if anyone computed the number of islander cottage families that would be affected by this bylaw. These past 17 years, Stonewall has become our summer residence, with my wife and kids spending the entire summers up there, and I would go back to work in Toronto and work for the weekdays.
Right.
There were many times during those weekdays that my wife would have to need her own vehicle to go and get groceries, run errands, take the kids
Harry, sorry to interrupt, sir, but you have 30 more seconds.
Okay, so I will just say that, thank you for that. Carly Fiorina, the former HP president, said, gather information and then turn that information into insight. To get insight into this complex problem, we need to gather more information. Until we're able to harvest the better insight, I request a moratorium to the no parking bylaw. That is it. Thank you for your attention.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. Duly noted. So as we move on to the next presenter, the next delegate, Mr. Peter Sherk, Please hang on. Of course, as everyone would well know, the committee will then discuss the item after hearing from all the delegations. So, Mr. Sherk, are you there?
Unmute. Okay, that should do it. Now can you hear me?
Peter, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for hearing me.
You've got the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Sherk, and I'm an island cottager who relies on Walker's Point Marina to access my property on Lake Muskoka. And I'm here today to request that council adopt a moratorium on the recently passed changes to the municipal bylaws that change the decades-old practice of allowing marina overflow parking on Marina Road. And the reason I'm asking for this moratorium is I think it's necessary to ensure that proper consultation of all interested and affected parties can take place. I think we need to ensure that the merits of all claims and arguments for and against can be properly explored and verified. I think we need to ensure that all vested interests and potential conflicts are well understood. We need to ensure that we understand what are the range of possible solutions and explore those. And then finally, to understand that the eventual outcome is reached through a compromise solution that takes into consideration the different and indeed sometimes conflicting interests of the ratepayers and voters of the district. It's abundantly clear to me that the passage of this new bylaw did not happen with these important steps. And I think the critical consultation of affected parties was entirely left out of the process. So I'd like to see that happen. I mean, to be clear, as island residents, we share concerns of safety that I've heard raised, and safety in the region is, of course, paramount to all of us. And we're perhaps more acutely aware of that than non-islanders because of the nature of access and difficulties that we have in that regard. So timely response to emergency is certainly well understood. And if there are legitimate concerns, then these should certainly be explored and well understood. And then a range of remedies should be considered to address that issue. As island cottagers, we have different needs than mainland cottagers. Many of the services provided by the municipality are ones that we can't actually use, but there's other needs we have that are somewhat unique to us, and access is that. Like mainland residents and cottagers, we all have families, we have friends, sometimes we have events, we've got painters, plumbers from time to time, people that have to come, different contractors, and all of them arrive by car and need to park somewhere. Then they get transported by boat, and we have those logistics to deal with as well. This is a hassle that we've had a solution for, and so for decades that solution has been the overflow parking on Marina Road. Now, that solution that has worked just great for us, not always ideal, sometimes parking is difficult, but we figured it out. But that's been completely upended. And now we're left to scramble for a solution with really no warning. And I don't think there was a need for this to occur in such an abrupt manner. We're all individuals with different perspectives, but we're all now horribly inconvenienced, frustrated, and more than a little bit angry about all this. It's very difficult for us to figure out how do we deal with this now, kind of in this last minute way. So I think it didn't have to happen this way, and I'm also concerned that now through this chosen course of action, now we've got division in the community. Now I'm hearing of people quarreling and upset with each other. I've never had an argument or disagreement with any other cottager. Maybe the guys riding the boats at 8 a.m. on Sundays, but other than that, we've always had good relationships with everyone and no quarrels. And now I'm hearing people fighting and different camps developing, and this group against that group, and acrimony and accusations of people acting improperly and their vested self-interests. And I just think as a community, we should be working together. And I would like to think that our council would work to prevent acrimony and disunity rather than inflame it, which I feel is happening.
Peter, you have 30 seconds, sir.
Thank
you.
Well, let me jump ahead. So thanks for the heads up. I understand that there's concerns raised. So what I think we need to do is take some time to back off a little bit, say, okay, we've had something going on for decades and decades. We don't have to change all at once. Let's understand what the issues are and ask questions. What is the problem we're trying to address? If it's safety, are there practical requirements for road safety vehicles? Width, what is that standard? Do cottage individual access roads actually meet that same standard? Clearly, that has to happen too. What is the actual history of difficulties? If it's convenience, what's the issue? Are there a range of solutions that we've explored? How many ratepayers are affected? How many islanders?
Peter, I'll get you to wrap up, sir, please.
Yep. Okay. So, the marina is a large and important employer in the region. Probably deserves a better road to it. Perhaps that road could be widened. That seems, with all the good work we do all over the municipality, maybe that's a solution. Is there a larger context? We've got this new Walker's Point lookout trail. That's attracting people. We're deliberately trying to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Peter, thank you very much, sir. And again, you're on the
That's
record. Okay, and you are heard.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Very
Thank you.
important. Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to call out to our number 4 delegation, Laurie Cashmore. Laurie, good morning. Welcome. You have the floor if you're there. Can we hear you? She here? Oh, you're muted, Laurie?
I think I'm open now. Can you hear me?
There you go. Great. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you. So am I supposed to start?
Go ahead, please. You have the floor. Certainly. 5
Okay,
minutes.
thank you. We kind of thought we'd be able to hear each other's delegation. This is a little awkward, but I want to know what the other guys have said. But anyway, I'll start. Thank you for listening to my delegation. I'm a mother of 4 grown children, a grandmother of 7, and the last thing I thought I'd be doing this summer is having to protect our rights as Muskoka Island cottagers. Our island cottage is the cherished focal point for my entire family. All I wanted this summer was to get my family vaccinated so we could return to some sense of normalcy and enjoy our cottage together again. But at this time of uncertainty, your council has, for island cottagers, made normalcy impossible. You may not have realized it, but your decision to prohibit street parking on Marina Road adjacent to Walker's Point Marina forced the marina to designate 1 car spot per boat customer. In the past, it's always been first come, first park for approximately 40 parking spaces. Now, with no overflow parking available at peak times, let's face it, only 8 to 10 weekends out of the whole year, it means no guest or family parking for any islander, absolutely none. One of my counselors told me our only option was to park at the community center. Please stop whatever you're thinking and imagine you own an island cottage. It's Friday night and it's pouring rain. And because you have family arriving, you have to drive 10 minutes by boat, dock, cover your boat, walk to your car, drive 9 kilometers, return as each guest arrives to pick them up and repeat that whole scenario when they return. Imagine having to do that several times an evening as they arrive from their busy jobs and the 400. This decision by council contravened your own code of conduct. Neither the affected stakeholders, island cottagers, nor Walker's Point management were notified. There was no staff report and no consultation with islanders, so you could understand the implications of your decision. The signs just appeared on Marina Road after Thanksgiving last year when we were all gone. Islanders have been parking on Marina Road for nearly half a century safely for free. This new bylaw was implemented with no consultation, planning, or consideration of stakeholders' rights. Everyone, islander or mainlander, deserves safety and security. The indisputable fact, according to staff at the marina, is that EMS have never been blocked on Marina Road or in the marina. At least 2 to 3 times a year for the past 30 years, the marina has carefully directed EMS to their dock to pick up injured boaters. Your own resolution from last July clearly shows cars parked neatly, tucked as far off the road as possible, and there is ample room for fire trucks. You seem focused only on possible road and traffic safety. But what about the safety of my 4-month-old grandson? If we think that he might have a problem, we're not sure, but we'd like to get him to the hospital to get him checked out. We'd have to drive our son 9 kilometers return to pick up his car so Edison can be put in his car seat while we wait on the dock with him, whatever the weather, day or night. Does that delay in emergency response seem safe to you? We've been scrambling for weeks trying to find parking space nearby. The marina has built a small, expensive parking lot to add just 12 spots, charging ridiculously high rates. And because there is absolutely nowhere else for us to go, we are held hostage. We are totally reliant on them. And if you dump this parking issue on the marina to handle, it will be seen as yet another municipal tax download for islanders to endure. We aren't requesting at this time that council build us a new expensive parking lot. We simply want the level of service that we've enjoyed as taxpayers all along be restored. We request parking be immediately allowed on one side only of Marina Road to accommodate only cars and small trucks. We are requesting an immediate resolution that the General and Finance Committee recommend the Township of Muskoka Lakes Council place a moratorium on no parking bylaws and fines for Marina Road, Walker's Point, until staff can study and address this complex long-term issue in detail through consultation, communication, and knowledgeable direction through its ratepayers. Please quickly address this unfortunate inequity before it becomes an even larger, more encompassing issue. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Laurie. Very well said, very well documented. Thank you very much for that, and duly noted for the record. Thank you. I'm going to let you go slip away, and I'm going to let Duncan McGregor come on as our 5th delegate on this issue. Mr. McGregor, are you available? You there? You there? Just connecting now. Thank you. I might just say for the record, this, Mr. McGregor is our last delegate in that regard. There are no delegates speaking on behalf of the notion that the signs should stay. So I read the numbers of the people that sent their names in support of maintaining, but there's no delegates to that in that regard. Committee will speak to this issue right after Mr. McGregor has his comments, and when he Mr. McGregor, you've been let in, but are you muted? Are you start video for you? Hopefully we can get you on here, sir. We'll allow a few more moments for Mr. McGregor to somehow connect. See him? Okay, Mr. McGregor, we're gonna actually put you out and bring you back in again, if that, perhaps that might be a better scenario. So we'll just try that. Is there someone else watching that could perhaps phone Mr. McGregor if they have his number, his contact, and just to ask him to retry? Yeah, and the phone number to call in here would be on the agenda. I'm wondering if we can't get him in, that if the committee would proceed to discuss and allow him in, it wouldn't be quite right in terms of the process. So I'd prefer if he spoke first, of course. So we'll perhaps allow a few more moments to try this. If anybody can call him, if anyone has his personal number, please do. And have him try. We're ready and willing to accept him in. Can we see him? Okay, so Mr. McGregor, you're back in the waiting room for us. That's good.
Chair Zavitz, I just connected with Mr. McGregor. He's phoning in right now.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that will be an audio. Good. Thank you. What do you think? Oh, there he is. Yay.
Hi, it's Duncan McGregor. Can you hear me?
The highly anticipated Duncan McGregor, sir, welcome this morning, and you have the floor for 5 minutes. Please proceed.
I apologize for the technical glitch. I had to transfer over to my cell phone from my desktop. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I'll try and be brief to pick up some time here. So just an introduction. My name is Duncan McGregor. My wife, Shelby, and I live on Christmas Island, Lake Muskoka. We have 3 teenage boys. We live in downtown Toronto. For over 50 years, I've been spending my summers on Lake Muskoka. For the first 25 years on our Bradley Road mainland cottage, my grandfather built after the Second World War, and then 25 years on Christmas Island with my family. So my thought is this: simply, owning the cottage is a gift for our children to swim, to sail, to learn about life at the lake, to invite our friends and family up for long weekends, barbecues, special events, weddings, etc. And cottages are meant to be shared, and it's really one of the only reasons why all of us who own cottages can justify the capital and the maintenance cost, is to invite friends and family up. And I think that's really where I want to start my argument. There's over 30 islands in the Beaumaris, Seven Sisters, East Bay, Aston, Browning archipelago. Most of these residents rely on mainland access. With the densification of the mainland over the last several decades, Walker's Point has become a very significant landing point for all of us islanders. And that's really something I'm not sure the author and the seconder of this bylaw that went through last year, I'm not sure if they considered the Islander cottages, and it's really pitted the Islanders against the mainlanders. And one thing I would like to point out, the councillors and the councillors that put this motion forward, from what I understand, consulted maybe half a dozen cottages either side of Walker's Point Marina. I've been landing there for, again, the last 25 years. I've never seen more than 25, 30 cars on maximum, and that would be a long weekend. So how the council and how the Township of Muskoka Lakes allowed this bill to go through when you've got, on one hand, a very small select group of mainland cottagers versus the vast majority of island cottagers being impacted with no consultation, no study, as one of the speakers on our panel, Mr. Sherk, pointed out, there was no proper consultation done, and that really is what I wanted to stress. But I would also like to maybe take it to one step further. The councillors that put this bylaw forward, there was talk of reports of failure to have access for emergency vehicles. The people that we've contacted, either who work on the fire department or who have been impacted in and around this area, no such report was ever produced. I would love to see it if something exists, and I think that's really where this should start. Wind back the clock through all the necessary consultation processes to come up with this bylaw. I will just finish with one last point. There's over 50 families, 50 American families in the Beaumaris archipelago that date back multi-generations. There's Pittsburgh steel barons, there's industrialists, inventors, philanthropists, politicians, European royalty that fly directly to Bracebridge Airport. They're very high-profile people, not to say they're more important, but just to say they're very high-profile people that represent a bulk of the tax base coming from the Islander cottages into the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And they use their cottages maybe 6 to 8 weeks a year. And that's about what I use my cottage to. My message, and maybe even take it as a warning to the council, people and a capital have choices. Lake Muskoka is a wonderful destination for these folks, but there's other options like Lake Como, Lake Tahoe, the Amalfi Coast. There's other alternative destinations. Lake Muskoka is a gem. The Beaumaris Archipelago is a gem. And keeping the island cottagers happy and the bulk of your tax base happy, I would take very strong consideration in that versus a handful of mainland cottages around Walker's Point Marina. That's what I wanted to discuss. I'm certainly willing to answer any questions if any of you council members have it.
Good, thank you, sir. Okay, welcome to the all of you, and we appreciate your comments and they're taken under advisement. I would ask that all of the folks that delegated this morning stay on. There may be, I don't know, there may be a question from one of committee, but I will now, at this point in time, turn this over to the General and Finance Committee, having heard and read everything you've now been exposed to. I would ask for general discussion and a more fulsome discussion here with these folks that are here now to discuss this. They've clearly asked for a moratorium as I'm reading it, as I'm hearing it, and I'm not sure exactly what a moratorium means. I suppose it might mean a sudden recant and let's let everything stay status quo until this more fulsome review is discussed. I do want to say before I let our committee members chime in, and I'm almost wondering if this wouldn't be a good time to do so. I'm turning to the CAO. We do have the Township Muskoka Lake, certainly within our plans, our strategic plan, et cetera, has a 2022 master transportation plan that will be coming forward. It certainly is coming forward. And I'm wondering if maybe we shouldn't, at this very briefly, just indicate what that means, because I do think it will fill in a couple of the blanks that we've been hearing today. So if I might, I'll hand it over to Derek Hammond for a few words from him, which is rather impromptu because he wasn't expecting this. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. The issue of island parking strikes me that there's sort of a two-prong approach that is being considered and will be considered. So to the chair's point, from a public access perspective, a transportation master plan or something like that is mentioned in our strategic plan that is proposed to be undertaken next year. And the notion of public parking areas around the lakes where there's accesses could be looked at, along with rationalizing public accesses. But it also strikes me as well that we are in the midst of an official plan review. So one of the policy directions that is being considered through that process is the notion of deeded access for new island lot creation, the notion of waterfront landings. So it is within council's purview to consider policies that would enable the creation of waterfront landings where new lots are being created on islands, but even more so enhancing marina policies to allow for nearby parking areas as well. So those are options that are being or are in process and will be in process. I don't know if Mr. Pink or Mr. Becking wish to comment further to provide further details in that regard, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at this point in time, we'll reserve any comments that may come out of our Public Works or Planning Department to hear from committee on this. So I'm just going to go as I've seen them pop up on the screen. So I think I'll go to actually I'll go to the mayor first. So Mayor Harding, you can go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. It's interesting as we look at this, I'm reminded, and one of the delegates brought up the bin sites and working with Public Works to try and find solutions to that. One thing I do know within our bin sites, we were concerned with 6 months notice that those would be removed without options. And we've been working to find unique solutions, if it be a daily weekly garbage truck showing up at some of the landings to solve the bin site problems. Is it a service that we have to provide islanders? No, it's not, but it's a service we have. So nobody likes their services taken away. I recognize the fact that we as a township do not have to provide parking for islanders. And I'll say that first and foremost up front. However, we have theoretically been providing parking for islanders by allowing parking on many of our roads. And I think, in fact, 95% of our roads across the township allow parking unless otherwise signed. And which gets me to kind of where I'm going, because I think ultimately, and I'm trying to remember back over the course of last summer when this was first introduced in July, literally 12 months ago now, the discussion revolved a lot around safety and concerns for public safety, people accessing their driveways, our fire and EMS to be able to access properties in and around. And I fully am in support of increased safety and making sure that we don't have an accident. I don't want to have an incident and then have to react afterwards if we find ways. But I do have to say, in this particular case, I haven't heard from our staff. I haven't heard from Mr. Becking to whether or not he believes from a Public Works perspective, we can park safely on one side or both sides, or where the best place if there was to be allowable parking. And I also haven't heard from our fire chief in this particular regard, saying that they have concerns or what they would like to see done. I do realize there are a lot of people, and we've received 20 or 30 letters of people who still want those no parking signs installed. What I really would like to do, I do realize that the islanders all access in and around Walker's Point Marina. For those people who've chimed in saying we need the parking signs to still remain, I'd be interested actually to kind of map their address, if you will. And there's no question, there's probably half a dozen properties that are significantly affected, and those people who drive in and out of there or in and out of their personal properties. But I think we can get some more information. We make mistakes, and I'm not sure whether we made a mistake on this particular one or not at this particular point. But I do know I like to have a little bit more facts and justification from our, again, Director of Public Works and also our Fire Chief before those decisions are made. And I'm not sure, I'll say that I've made that decision in this particular point. So I'm wondering if there's some kind of a compromise to help and understand us moving forward. I've driven the road many times in the last 30 days to try and understand, is there a solution? I think there is some areas, maybe it's not unlimited parking, but maybe there's a 500-foot stretch in a couple directions that make some limited parking right now till we can do some further study, because nobody likes to have a service that has been provided taken away. I'll leave that as some opening comments and see where this discussion goes, but
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think, and to your point, I think before I'll ask the rest of the committee members, it's lighting up like a Christmas tree here, so there's lots of comment. I'm wondering if we could first, though, have a word with the Director of Public Works, Ken Becking, and certainly our Fire Chief, Ryan Morrell. So I wonder if Director of Public Works, Becking, Ken, would you be there and able to speak to this? Not to put you on the spot, just your expert engineering opinion of what has transpired.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can say that the Marina Road is typical of many of the roads in the township. To the mayor's point, under the Highway Traffic Act, parking is permitted on any public roadway. Drivers are expected to pull as far as practicable to the right of the roadway and park, unless the road authority has passed a bylaw to the contrary. I think the road is, for all practical purposes, about 7 meters wide, which means that from a practical standpoint, there's room for 3 vehicles. In design standards, we typically we assume that the width of a vehicle is a maximum of 2.5 meters, actually 2.4. So there is space there for parking and 2 traveled lanes. It is exceedingly tight, and I think to Mr. Hammond's point, I would see the transportation master plan that's proposed in 2022 will come forward and make certain recommendations with respect to things like parking and design standards and so forth. But I think at this point, council has some options if it chooses to exercise them. And I think I'll leave it at that. If there's some specific questions you want to ask, I'll certainly endeavor to answer them.
Good, thank you, Ken. And I wonder now if I could speak with Fire Chief Morrell, if you'd come on, Ryan Morrell, sir. Thank you, Ken, and perhaps add your view.
I'll echo a lot of what the director just said. The only additional information I would give is that although we only require 2.4 meters for the width of a fire truck, we like to have a little room to open the door. So if there was some give and take in this, an identified area where a vehicle could pull over that we were meeting on that approach, it would be helpful if they could do the reversing and not our fire trucks.
Okay, that's that. Okay, so I'm gonna move. Thank you, Chief Morrell. Appreciate it. I'm gonna go to Councillor Bridgman, then Kelly, then Hayes, then Mazan. Councillor Bridgman, or Committee Member Bridgman, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Zavitz. I believe I came in after Councillor Hayes and Kelly, so and maybe Ms. Ann, so I'm happy to wait my turn. I know it's hard from your end figuring out who came in when, but I'll wait my turn.
No, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Councillor Hayes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, through you, just some information. I don't think it's been stated, but on 2 separate occasions, traffic was completely blocked by parking on the side of the road. People could not get through. They could not access their cottages. Or in the one instance when the gentleman was returning from launching his boat, he could not get home. He had to back up and go all the way around. Now, if that happens to general traffic on the road, it is going to happen to emergency vehicles. So that's why this was brought forward to council, because this was endangering things. And we can be very thankful that it did happen to vehicles and not to EMS responding. And that's why we were proactive in putting up the no parking signs, so this would not happen. And just to mention, there are 50 plus cottages along Marina Road, and they're all impacted by this narrow 1-lane access with parking on the side. This is my 3rd term as council. I have had many complaints about traversing that area. And I will say that the bulk of the complaints do not come from the people around Marina. They come from business people that are trying to drive their trucks down the road without having to meet another truck and back up. Because honestly, 2 trucks on that road with parking on the side, no one can get by. And I drive a small Elantra, and even for me to drive down there with another small car coming the other way, we creep by each other and hope that our mirrors do not touch. This is a very narrow road, and it's made even more narrow by parking on the one side. A lot of the businesses did not come through with complaints because they didn't want to get involved in this. This should not be viewed as an islander versus mainland. This is just a safety issue. That's all it is. And for the people that mentioned that they had workers that needed to come to their cottage, I would say Whiting's Beach was actually designed for that. You will park in a public area. You will be off the road. There is no charge to park there. There is no charge to use the dock. You can come and get it. Yes, it's a little bit further, but it is much, much safer for everybody involved. I do know the parking lot that the marina is looking at. I know that someone said it was very small, but it is a 5-acre lot, so it could be bigger. And I know when I drive by the Newark Marina and Campbell's Marina, there is no parking on the road, nor is there any parking on the road near any other marina except for a couple that are at dead ends. We were transparent when we brought this through. The signs went up on the 18th of August, not on Thanksgiving. And there were even cars parked on the road this spring. Even with the no parking signs, there were cars parked on the road this spring. It was not until people started receiving tickets that this became an issue. So I would ask staff to think about the blocking, the absolute blocking, because that is what spurred this to the no parking signs to go through. And I think the islanders would agree that putting that many people at risk, knowing that this is the only road on Walker's Point that is a through road. And it is the access of choice of many of the people at the far side that go to use the one and only public launch at the end, just off the end of Marina Road. So that's pretty much all I have to say, other than the fact that I did drive by there on a Wednesday before the signs went up, and I counted 35 plus cars on one side of the road. And as per one letter that we received, I saw 1 out of the civic number signs. So EMS responding would have to slow down and have to practically stop in order to read the civic numbers in order to respond. So I think knowing those facts, maybe the islanders would be a little bit more understanding as to why this happened.
Good, thank you very much. And certainly what you've just contemplated there is a lot of what was considered a year ago. in terms of this decision. So thank you for that insight as a counselor that lives on Walker's Point. And obviously that's well noted. Councillor Mazan, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. And through you, I actually think I was after Councillor Kelly. So if he'd like to go first, I'm happy to let him speak.
The chair decides, right?
No, he's fine. He's fine.
Go right ahead.
Okay, that's
Councillor
fine.
Mazan. You have the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you very much. A couple of comments. I think the first, specific to Ms. Wales' comments, I just wanted to thank her for taking the time and the very well thought out and considered approach. Bringing up, I think her ask was, could we review? And I think the appropriate space for that is in our transportation plan for the exact reason it allows all key stakeholders to be able to contribute. And so I just wanted to confirm with Ms. Wales that, you know, that is probably the appropriate place. I think as we heard from our CAO, that we are looking at all of these things and it would allow all voices to be heard. And, you know, Ms. Wales and I have had conversations and, you know, the silent but very loud voices, there's lots of people who want to add their voice and make sure that all sides of that situation are considered. Really, the discussion today about, so I guess I can't see Ms. Wales, I apologize, but I just wanted to confirm that you're satisfied with that approach. I think that's what I heard from you today. And I can't see Ms. Wales anymore.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
this
Zoom can be really difficult. Okay, you know what, if she is gone, I think through conversations we have had that she's satisfied with the review happening appropriately to allow Engage Muskoka to do its job and make sure we fashion some appropriate long-term solutions. And it is a long-term solution. For those watching today, I did hear kind of through letters and a few conversations, the sense that the island community is its own. And I just wanted to maybe provide some perspective. I actually grew up on an island. I raised my family on an island, so I certainly understand the intricacies. I think Ms. Cashmore was talking about getting the babies back and forth, and there is a safety element. I've lived through a tornado. I've lived through having to call EMS and fashion all those situations. So I do understand the complexity of that. What this is really about is about parking. And I think some of the other constituents, Mr. Sherk maybe and Mr. McGregor, I think we're touching upon just ensuring that there was the appropriate facts and reports. And I think that's what Mayor Harding is also suggesting, is we want to make sure from staff that we are understanding the safety elements of all of the audiences. So, so I think I'm hearing, and maybe I'm asking a bit more specifically from staff, is there a safety concern on Marina Road with parking, and or is there a recommendation?
Okay, thank you. Well, I suppose if there were, we would have heard it from the fire chief. I think I heard his comments loud and clear. It's obviously of concern, but I think this is going to be up to this committee, to be quite honest. I heard his words loud and clear. So I'm not going to ask the chief to comment on that at this early stage. I think it will come back in terms of safety. I mean, it's the prevailing point here, really, and it's been made time and time again. To put the fire chief on the spot further, I think he's already made his comments. I mean, Chief Morrell, if you have anything to say here at this point in time further to that, you're welcome to do so.
We would be, in our department, we'd be happy to go back and analyze the situation if we knew of a specific complaint to address.
So in a general sense, you aren't willing to make a comment about the safety of parking on one side of the road and the emergency aspect to that, is what I'm hearing. You'll respond to specific complaints, but not in a general sense of the safety piece to this.
Not at this time, not without further analysis and a specific complaint that we can address.
Okay, fair enough. I see Director Becking. Are you wanting to say something, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think in fairness to staff, we need to go out and evaluate this situation. I would point out that one side parking has existed for a considerable number of years, and while there have been a few complaints, to my knowledge, it has functioned reasonably well. We have similar situations throughout the township where, again, under comparable conditions, they have functioned reasonably well. But I think also each situation has to be assessed on its own merits, and that we can then advise council, committee and council appropriately.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Fair enough. I'm going to call on committee member Kelly. Peter?
Thank you, and through you, I'm going to try and keep it brief. You know, first of all, I want to thank all of the delegates. That's some really well-presented information that helps all of us. I think there's a real problem here, whether it's a real safety problem or a real problem of convenience or inconvenience, or whether the problem really is just the perception that there's convenience, inconvenience, or safety. It's a problem. And the good news is we're pretty good at solving problems. I think the bigger issue is that we have I think I heard 50 years, it may have gone on longer, 50-year history of sort of come and take a parking spot access, free access to roadside parking. And, you know, there's kind of a theory in law that if you if you do something repeatedly and sort of both sides to the equation don't say anything about it, that course of conduct itself creates a license or a contract. And I just don't think it's reasonable for us to expect that a 50-year habit like that can disappear overnight. Cars can't be willed away. Parking spots can't be created elsewhere if they just don't exist. But I think we can find a solution, and the solution may be off-road parking, privately owned, off-road parking, municipally owned. It may, I don't know what it is. I don't think, I think we have to sort of examine whether the consultation that we had before we made the decision was appropriate. And I think I've just heard Mr. Becking and perhaps Mr. Morrell suggest that they would like to have a look at it and have another look at the issues. I think we have to take a look at what reasonable notice is in terms of changing the terms of the arrangement for the parking. Putting a sign up August the 16th for somebody who goes home on the 15th of August and doesn't come back till May 24, that in and of itself isn't enough notice. And I also think that, like any contract that you want to bring to an end, there's some question of reasonable time. We can't sneak in the middle of the night and put no parking signs over cars already parked. I don't think we can do this here without some notice and some opportunity to give the affected individuals a chance to find a good alternative. So my preference would be that we take Mr. Becking and Mr. Morrell up on their offer to have a second look at this, that we think about consultation and whether we've done an appropriate consultation, and then whatever we decide to do, it's done with the right kind of notice through the mail to individual affected property owners. I don't know how it should get done, but maybe better than just hanging a no parking sign that nobody sees for 6 months. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee member Bridgman, and then the mayor, Councilor Nishikawa, and then Councilor Hayes.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. And I too want to commend our delegates on well-prepared and just well-delivered, because I know this is an emotional topic. So I will certainly echo Councillor Kelly in terms of looking for a detailed staff report on this in terms of safety. I think we need that. And I'm hearing also in terms of, it's been there a long time. I still have some safety concerns. So I think my question is, in the interim, if we allow parking on one side of the road, in theory, trucks can get through. And then we do our research, and as a midpoint for this, does that help? I'm actually asking the question, if we did just one side of the road so that you can't park on both sides, can that be an interim step that we take before we get our reports back? I'm not sure who that's directed to, Chair Zavitz, actually.
Thank you.
Or maybe it's just my
Are you
comment.
suggesting, that's fine, thank you. Are you suggesting something essentially moved here and now, today, this morning?
Yes, actually, I think I am, as
Right.
in terms of allowing everybody to have some time, yes.
Good, thank you very much. I'm going to call on the mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment, and Councillor Kelly made a quick statement, which is interesting, about proper notification. You know, if somebody wants to build their property 2 feet closer on the property line, the Planning Act has significant notification in the mail, must be done appropriately for that 2 feet. Ourselves implementing this no parking bylaw has clearly affected a lot of people, and we've got a lot of comment from both sides. It's interesting from a notification perspective, because again, when we get the regular planning notification, we hear, I only heard about it 5 days ago. We've got people only reacting to it 8 months later. So clearly we didn't do our job, obviously, in informing people on potential changes. I'm going to have to look to council. I'm happy to make a comment or pass any kind of resolution here today. However, we still have a number of island residents that, until council ratifies the removal or a moratorium on parking, this is in place, and our bylaw will be enforcing this and enforcing it for the next 30 days. So I believe, and I'll look to the clerk, that if possible, 2/3 of this committee, we could be, or I guess single vote, we could move this to potentially have a resolution on council agenda this afternoon.
Sorry, Mayor, sorry, sir, I must cut you off. Only because I don't think we're quite there yet with that, but I do hear what you're saying, and I certainly, as we, you know, I certainly get it, and I think others might want to chime in on that, and then I'll simply ask that question of everyone, and we'll see what that temperature is. Okay, sir. Thank you for that. Councillor, our committee member Hayes, and then Nishikawa, and then Mazan, please. Councillor.
I believe Ruth and Susan were both before me.
Really? Okay, it doesn't matter. Please go ahead. What we're looking for now is the commentary, so please proceed.
Okay. Just for historical purposes, this parking has not been going on for 50 years. The original Shell Marina was sold to the Dunn family, who ran it for many years, and all of the parking was down in the marina itself. Then they built a rather large showroom for their boats and offices up above, and this resulted in some of the overflow parking going out onto the road. At that time, there was only a few cars, maybe half a dozen. Now, on any given day in the summer, there are upwards of 35 cars. And even if they're on one side, the one lady was blocked off with parking on one side. So we have to look at the safety issue. It does go down to one lane. It is not traversable if there is a service vehicle on that lane. You have to back up. So I think that you have to look at all of the facts. And to put this forward today, those people who sent in letters were assured that there was no resolution for today's meeting. And I'm sure that all of them would have been here and delegated had they known that this was going to be put forward to council to be voted on to be removed. They are now actually enjoying the road and the safety aspect of it. And we have bicyclists, cyclists, pedestrians. We even have one lady with a scooter that is now going down the road with her friends, which she was not able to do before because you funneled cars, bikes, pedestrians, joggers, everything into one lane, and it was unsafe. So I would object to this going to council this afternoon. I think that is pushing it through, and those people who we have heard from that live on Marina Road, you are doing them a disservice by doing that.
Thank you. Duly noted. Councillor Nishikawa and then Councillor Mazan, then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you. Danelda brought up some of the issues that I wanted to discuss. It's been interesting for me, and I will just say, we have been noting other situations within the township. The changes that we've seen over the last couple of years, we're changing the change of ownership at the marina has created some other difficulties, I will just say, in the way that they run things. So, you know, many of us in the community were very fortunate to have the Dunns as such a large community member. They were, if anything was going on, they were part of it. And in fact, they have the other parking facility along with their boat storage off of Barlochlan. And there was a shuttle service at one time available. I don't believe, and so it's interesting again, it was a different marina ownership last year. 2 years prior, it was a different marina ownership. This year, it's a different marina ownership, and I don't believe that council should be involved in the running of how that marina does their things. But I will say, it has been quite a challenge when I see, for instance, I will use the Whiting's Beach situation, where there are 7 commercial trucks taking up the prime parking locations that we have historically seen, you know, Mrs. Smith, who would have her tinny to get out to her island, where and you know, those are the ways that we always used to do things. So it's interesting when you see that many contractors taking up the prime locations. And in fact, you know, I've had other situations where a road was completely blocked to a children's camp that would have a couple of hundred kids at that camp. And that road was blocked because people decided to bring their trailers, and there was 3 in this particular circumstance. And sorry, the fire chief wasn't on at that time, but our old fire chief was certainly involved. That was very, very challenging. We don't have parking police per se. We have bylaw officers, but I don't believe that it can be a responsibility that our staff have to go out and see that people have ensured that they've parked the tightest and the best way they can. And that's what the situation would be like on Marina Road. It is very tight. And I certainly have, you know, from a construction perspective, like from my business perspective, I have built down that way. I've had to use that road. It's very, very tight. And all I'm saying is that the change of use, we've all seen things explode over these last few years. But I don't think that this is a numbers game, that you can just look at something on a piece of paper. Certainly it's very narrow in certain areas and maybe not. But my concern as well is, what are people going to do, or what are people's reactions going to be when in fact there is no parking available for their family or friends because the contractors have taken it all up. You know, that's a bit bigger discussion, but I don't think that we can have answers today.
Good, thank you. And certainly one hopes that transportation studies and plans and master plan for 2022 will certainly uncover that whole aspect in a much more fulsome manner. I'm going to ask Councillor Mazan if it's something different and new and wonderful that you have just come up with. Please go ahead. I'm going to get to the end of this at some point.
There is nothing new or exciting, Chair Zavitz. Thanks for that question. But with that said, I just wasn't sure that Councillor Bridgman's questions had been And I just wanted to support that is, what is the appropriate next step, or how do we, because what I'm picking up loud and clear through all of the messages and through today's delegations are what the mayor and Councillor Kelly was saying about reasonable notice and making sure that we fashion real solutions, right, to the very practical. The transportation plan is going to be the right space for long-term strategy, but I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that before we start talking about does things move forward to this afternoon or not. So thank you.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And of course, that's good optics. Councillor Bridgman and then Councillor
just a quick comment. Thanks, Chair Zavitz. I've always been about governance and transparency. So Councillor Hayes, thank you for the reminder that those people who want this put in place would not have the ability to come and delegate to us. So I am not in favor of moving this forward immediately. I don't think that's part of our proper process. I just wanted to clarify that.
Good, thank you very much. Councillor Edwards, sir.
Thank you very much. They've said that this has been and not allowed for 50 years. I've been coming up for over 50 years, and the number of cottages that have been built on islands over the last 50 years has multiplied too. Plus, those people have had families, so not like the same as we have our boys coming up. We have our grandchildren coming up. We've been allowing severances, and we're saying one boat on and that one car. I think we're going to have to look at that on the official plan. We have, if you have a business and you have to provide so many parking spots, or you have to pay for that in lieu of parking. It should be the same maybe with the cottages now, because maybe you should have 3 or 4. Maybe it's one spot for bedroom. I don't know the answer. We're going to have to look at it. But, it's a serious problem because somebody owned an island and then they severed it. So now they have 2 cottages, and somebody else severs it off of that. You have 3 cottages and 4. We have and that one coming up with 5 cottages and that severance. So it's a major problem. Councils have done this one. I provide in that parking on my property for my family because I know they may be coming up, and I don't know what the answer is, but I don't think we're going to solve it today. I don't think we should bring it forward today, and we should look at it. But I think what we have to do is try and find some parking spaces for people, whether it's public. And when you get a severance, it's right on the thing. You have to have a letter. Well, maybe a letter is not good enough now because obviously there's been parking changes at Walker's Point Marina. So I would just leave it the way it is right now. We can bring it back and see what we can do in that. But those people that are complaining about the signs coming down should be heard as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And I think perhaps a bit of a summary here. So as I'm seeing it and as I'm hearing it, and I haven't offered my 2 cents, and I think I won't, I'll simply help the staff here and the committee members that what I'm seeing and hearing, I mean, certainly there's 2 pieces to this. It's a large puzzle. There's a seasonality to it. If we don't do something today, the season will be lost for some of these potential parking spots. I'm going to ask right now if there's an appetite here to move for us to take a pause and create any kind of a resolution that would somehow then be approved by GNF, recommending to council this afternoon. I mean, that's a very harsh activity, but it's one that can be done. I'm just going to look to people for, I think I have a general sense that I see there's a few, but most are not in agreement with that activity. I see the mayor's got his hand up. I'll give you the last word if you'd like, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. I guess before we vote on whether or not this moves forward, I appreciate everyone's comments about proper governance and proper notification, and that we don't want to ram this through. The issue that we have 20-odd delegates and letters today means that a year ago, there was a change to the service level that people were unaware of. All we would be doing by today is not ramming anything due, is undoing potentially what was done. Because to me, I'm not looking at today and a change. I believe that last year there was not, though we followed process and something came to council and then or it came to GNF and then it went to council, but it came without any fanfare. And that to me is what's going on. I appreciate Councillor Edwards' perspective on we're adding severances and everything else. Christmas Island in particular is one island with one property, no new severances. So, you know, we have these issues that exist. We have created these issues that exist. This council has by adding no parking signs and removing parking that constituents of ours are asking us to address. I'm not saying that it may not end up that way. We made changes to Curry Street. We put a bylaw in place. We made a change because we got it wrong. And all I'm saying is pause, I believe, is the right thing, but we should be pausing. We should have paused 12 months ago. And I believe we have an opportunity to rectify that. If not, there's no point in pausing anything necessarily, and because this season is completely gone. That would be my perspective, and I would be in favor of moving this and discussing it at council.
Okay, good. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Last word, perhaps.
Thank you, and through you, just a real practical problem. We've got signs up. There's a weekend coming. People want to park. You know, what can we do to sort of? There's a lot of stress around this and a lot of issues around this. If we don't move to take the signs down, what can we do short of that to alleviate the problem and not ticket people for things that we're now questioning whether, you know, we've given reasonable notice and appropriate notice and reasonable time. That's my, you know, my concern is a little more practical. What happens this weekend?
Yeah, okay, thank you. And from my understanding, and I'm not the authority, we have authorities here. From my understanding, our hands are relatively tied. Where we are as a committee right now, as I understand it, is virtually deadlocked, one might suppose, on whether we have no resolution today. There is no resolution here and now to move a notion that we would pause this scenario, take the signs down and leave them up for the balance of the season until, say, October 1st. There is no resolution to that effect. So if to do that, we would have to have, as I understand it, we'd have to have a resolution first. We have to have 2/3 majority of this council agree to move that forward. And I'm not seeing that on my screen. I don't know about your screen, but I see 5 people nodding their heads no and 5 people saying yes. So, and you know, I think the challenge here is to put our staff on the spot. They'll give us options. So sure, I guess we could pass some sort of an order right here and now that says, you know, bag the signs. Let's let everybody park. But that's, to Councillor Hayes' point, that's kind of against our purview of being, we are here in a public place with the people that own this place. And they're seeing and hearing this. So, you know, I'd hate to ask for a staff report, because if we ask for a staff report that'll come forward in August, what's the use? The season's over. So by the time we would enact a staff report recommendation, it would be September, and we'd be nowhere with this particular, to the mayor's point and to your point, Councillor Kelly, the pause. So I think right here and now, I suggest we're at an impasse, and it's hard for me to suggest that when I actually haven't called, I have no vote to call. So, I mean, I can ask, as we often do, take the temperature of this committee. What do you think? Who might be in favor of a pause on this issue here and now, which would then have to be expedited to council this afternoon? Who would be in favor of that? I mean, I'm seeing 1, 2. I'm seeing two hands. So that's it's simply not going to happen. So, you know, with that, I'm going to thank everyone for this information. What a 90 minutes of very interesting discussion back and forth from a lot of people affected. And I think we all are in making these hard decisions. It's not to say it's not coming back. And certainly the transportation program next year should hopefully do that. Gentlemen, I probably shouldn't allow any more comment. I mean, I think we've been around the horn.
No, we have not been around the horn.
Well, Councillor Roberts, you've not said anything. Now you want to, so go ahead. Sure, fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I have not said anything because I let my colleagues say it all. What I'm saying, I have spent an hour and a half or whatever it is discussing this. We can't leave it. We need to have something going forward. If it's not a resolution, we need to have ask staff, or we need to report, as the constituents asked, to do more due diligence on that. And that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, so certainly. So a direction to staff. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Bridgman.
Thank you. I noticed that Mr. Becking had his hand up. He wanted to think. I wouldn't be opposed to a temporary fix. Maybe Mr. Becking can say maybe we could just cover the signs or just not ticket for the rest of the season, but leave the signs up. I would just not ticket. I'd leave the signs up, and then they know that next year they're not going to be parking there.
Okay, well.
And get a solution. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, there we go. Because that's, I mean, I think that's where we are. Quite honestly, I think we're at 5-5 or 6-4, whatever it is. I don't have a resolution. So to move a notion forward that we would bag signs in Beaumaris, but not bag the signs in, at Walker's Point, and not bag signs at Beaumaris, seems that we haven't discussed this thing in its entirety. So, I think it's such a big issue. I don't know how we can do a regional solution to a larger problem. Personally, I've got lots of hands up here. It's 10:30, and we'll just carry on, I guess. Councillor Mazan, you go right ahead.
Sorry, and through you. And I think I wanted to hear from Director Becking. I feel like he keeps putting his hand up, and I'm wanting to hear from staff, because what Councillor Edwards just brought up is, I think, what I was leaning towards. It's not, I don't have the answer here. And what I'm hearing loud and clear is there's a group that's saying, hey, we don't feel our voice was heard. So in the spirit of trying to fashion solutions in the same way the mayor brought up about garbage, I think we're just looking for like a path forward to try and help this situation. So I would hate to think that any of my colleagues who actually walk the roads daily think we're not listening to them at all. I'm just trying to listen to other side as well. Councillor Edwards brought up what I was thinking. Is there a possibility to bag these things while we look forward to a staff report, even for 4 weeks? Because I think one of the things I heard from a lot of the constituents is just they want to know the facts. They want to hear from staff. So that's the path forward. And I'm not sure how to do that effectively, other than what the mayor just brought forward. So I think, okay, so I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to allow Mr. Becking, I think, has his hand up. Thank you.
Well, and thank you for that. I guess the fuller point is, to Councillor Hayes' point earlier, I mean, this isn't a who had more names in objection or in favor. Point being, a staff report on this issue, when it's such a larger issue, I'm not sure it's going to help this season. And I think we're talking season, because next year, one would hope that the transportation plan would be more fulsome and encompassing and deal with the issue. So I'll ask Director Becking go ahead, but I'm not sure that he's going to be able to offer a solution, because we're going to have to vote on it anyway. So Director Becking, you go right ahead if you have a comment. Loud and clear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess in terms of options available to council, you have the option, or let me back up a half step. Staff have the authority to temporarily suspend, given an operational imperative, the enforcement of a regulation by virtue of bagging the sign. That essentially makes it ineffective. You could, through council resolution, direct staff to bag a sign or group of signs. That option is available if you choose to exercise it. In a broader context, I think, as I've said earlier, Each one of these situations should be assessed, at least from an engineering and a public safety perspective, on their own merits. And my suggestion to you and committee is that the matter should be referred back to staff to be assessed on its own merits and allow staff to come forward with a recommendation. And then it will have been given the appropriate considerations from a technical perspective. It then boils down to council and committee and council to decide on how they choose to proceed.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. So I guess Councillor Bridgman, then Councillor Hayes and Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you, Chair Zavitz. I know we're trying to work our way through to a solution here. That's what I was thinking too. If we can put a 30-day pause on this and allow the parking, bag the signs, when it comes back to us in 30 days, that gives everybody a chance to come back and express their views. It isn't like this is off the table. It is just a pause. But also I would point out that the motion that we're dealing with is only Marina Road. So that's what's in front of us right now. It's not in terms of what we're dealing with today. It isn't regional. We need a regional solution, but I guess that's the transportation. I would think it's the master plan. Anyway, I would be in full support of bagging them for a month. The landowners that are not happy, it's not off the table, but we need time to allow for a staff report and a discussion including everyone. So that is where I'm going. It just took us a while to get that clarity, in my humble opinion. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Councillor Hayes and Councillor Nishikawa, and we'll wrap it up.
Through you to committee, we have had two separate reports of the road being blocked due to parking. You've received them, staff has received them. So before we bag them, I would like to have a report from our CAO as to how that would affect our insurance. Because we know now that this is a situation that is not normal. We are aware of the fact that this could impede emergency vehicles. By ignoring this, how are we opening up ourselves for litigation? And I think before we bag any signs, we better get the answer to that, because our insurance may say, look, you knew about it and you chose to ignore it. So therefore you're on the hook for it, which means that the taxpayers will be paying if anything happens. So that is a report that I would like to see prior to us deciding to bag them and taking a pause.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I wonder, Director Becking, could you speak to that from your experience as an engineer? The insurance situation?
Under normal circumstances, parking would be permitted under the Highway Traffic Act. And as long as the drivers behave in accordance with the act, then there is there's no liability so far as I'm aware. I should clarify that if council wants to, or committee or council wants to go down the road of bagging, I would suggest that you bag on one side only. And of the two sides, I would suggest that you bag on the lake side so as to not interfere with all of the entrances along that side of the road, and put the parking on the side away from the lake. But that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I think I've been working with Danelda too long. The insurance was a big issue for me. I have seen our municipality, I've seen people sue because someone tripped somebody in the arena. It does concern me quite a bit. We've had challenges over the years with our insurance. And to me, it's interesting because the one side has a large ditch, and it does force people, because they want their passenger to get out safely. But what it does is it leaves the car basically taking up a lane of traffic. I think that this is a situation that we should get a staff report, and it should be a fulsome staff report. And again, we are only talking about Marina Road right now, so we're not going to solve what the issues at Beaumaris. And in fact, I don't believe that this is the direction today that our council should go in without a legal opinion about what the impact from if an accident happens, how does that affect our township? Because we saw that there was an incident, those were reported, as we heard. We were aware of them. We chose to take an action to correct those. But in fact, now we're reversing our decision just for the time being. That really concerns me, but also, again, my comments earlier about we're not going around checking how people are parked. So for instance, if somebody chooses to leave their boat trailer half end out in, a lot of people don't know that they can actually pick up their boat trailer and move it over behind their car. But we see this sort of thing all the time. I don't know. Are we going to then council direct staff to check these facilities every day that people are parking in the manner that council expects them to park? I'll just say that. The safety of the area is of great concern, and well, Councillor Edwards brought it up as well. Lots have changed. There's been a lot of development. There's a lot going on, but it is interesting, as I've mentioned before, if you look at the situation. I know Newark is not in our township, but it does service a lot of people in the Walker's Point area. They've over the years just keep building parking lots. East Bay Marina, same thing. That's owner operated, like the Islanders own that. They are making those provisions, and so I'm just very concerned that if our council is going to, or committee is going to go the direction that they want to for the next month, that if there's an accident, we're putting ourselves in a situation that could have been avoided.
Okay, thank you for that. And I hopefully Director Becking has assuaged that concern, but certainly it's warranted.
And did I ask, by the way, please move forward with a staff report?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And so Mayor Harding, you're the mayor. I'll give you the last word, but then I'm going to seek some consensus here.
Thank you. And I fully agree with insurance questions or whatever. I guess, I saw one incident report that a boat fell off a trailer. I don't care what road you're on. If a boat's falling off a trailer, whether there's cars parked on the side of the road or not, that road's going to be blocked with a boat in the middle of the road. We have car accidents on Highway 118 and 169 all day long that the road is completely blocked. We have a lift bridge or a swing bridge in Port Sandfield. We have one in Port Carling. When the mechanism fails, it completely blocks the road. It's not because cars are necessarily parked on the side of the road. So I'd love to see some staff report on that. Again, maybe I missed or spoke earlier, but I am in favor of somehow suspending the parking fines, if it be bagging or whatever. I would like to consider this afternoon because I do believe we owe it to all constituents. And yes, 100%, we need our staff to chime in on, can this be done safely or not? We made a decision a year ago, but again, we've made wrong decisions. So I think it's okay to suspend, and I'll leave it to Chair Zavitz to where we go.
Well, thank you for that, sir. That shapes the narrative a little bit too. Certainly, the recommendation will be here and now, I guess, to where we've now come, would be there's a certain appetite to bag the parking signs, the no parking signs for a month, and at the same time have a fulsome staff report. I guess that would be both fire and public works as it relates to the no parking signs on this road, on Marina Road. And so I guess what I need to do here is we need a two-thirds vote in favor of bagging and a full staff report occurring until whatever the next August cycle is, August 15th, let's say, where it would go to either committee, I guess it would go to council. So in that regard, I'm going to have to ask folks, you here and now, we need a 2/3 majority to bag the signs for a month and ask for a full staff report in that month's time. I see Councillor Edwards. I'll let you have one comment, sir.
I'd like to know from the CAO or Mr. Becking, if we could just leave the signs up and just not ticket for a month. And that way, that people are going to know that there is no parking. And then it should, and that to our insurance for the fact that there are no parking signs, and yet but just not, and not issue tickets. And I'd ask CAO for comments.
Good, thank you. I think we might speak right to the person in charge of that department, David Pink, in terms of the director of that. David, I wonder if you could speak to that concern about simply not ticketing in one particular place and not everywhere else in this township. Sir. There he is. David, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, committee. Through you. I think I can certainly look to Mr. Kennedy for his added thoughts on this. I think our strong preference is we need clear direction from council as to your wishes, whether that's a bag on the signs. I think that would be the preference as opposed to relaxing our enforcement for the next month. But provided clear direction is provided from council, we will follow through.
Good. Thank you, David. Okay. So committee, I think that's very clear. I think we have an understanding. We simply would be asking for the bagging of the no parking signs on Marina Road, Walker's Point for 1 month, while and during and to the conclusion of a full staff report in August to coming to council. That would be what we would be entertaining. I'm going to ask you all. Sorry, Mayor. We got to get this moving.
I appreciate that. I have just a point of order as a question. I asked the clerk for us to consider a resolution in committee. I don't believe it requires 2/3 vote. It would require a 2/3 vote to put it on a council agenda this afternoon for a notice without motion. Madam Clerk.
I'm going to let Cheryl speak to that.
Good morning. With respect to the mayor's question, the requirement to put a motion on the table from the members of committee would require a 2/3 vote to authorize the consideration without notice. So we'd have to do it here at committee and then a recommendation to council, and then we would have to do it again at council. So alternatively, we just consider something at council, but staff would need clear direction.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, so given that, we do obviously need the 2/3 approval piece here. I would ask you all to consider what I've just indicated, the bagging for 1 month. Yeah, so we'll need to draft a motion to that effect and then hold that vote. So I think it's 10 to 11. Why don't we take a pause until perhaps 11 o'clock? And hopefully we can draft something at that point in time that we can read, pass, and then move on. Okay, folks, so we'll see you at, let's call it 11:05, please. Thank you. Hi, okay. Welcome back at 11:12 on this fateful Wednesday. Okay, so is everyone here? There's Alan. Everybody's smiling. There we go. That's good news. Okay, so we have a little bit of work to do here, team. I do have everyone present and accounted for, so I'll read a motion today, July 14, 2021, moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Whereas section 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedure By-law 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without notice if committee without debate dispenses with notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that the General Finance Committee hereby consents to the consideration and vote on a new motion with respect to the parking on Marina Road without notice. All those in favor?
One, two, three, four, 6. So it defeated. It needs to be 2/3.
So that is defeated. That's that. So it needed 7.
And so all opposed.
I guess I need to call all opposed, please. Okay, good. Thank you.
That stands as is.
That stands as is. That's democracy. There you go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone for their time and energies and efforts, both certainly at Marina Road as it relates to Walker's Point, and certainly in Beaumaris as it was wrapped in here. I do want to just say, I hope people take solace in the fact that we're all trying to go in the same direction. And this can, I suppose, news at 11. We can talk about it further. So that is that. I'm going to move on now in our agenda to item 4B, which is a delegation, David Rees, applicant, and J. Hitchon, Waterous, Holden, Arnie, and Hitchon LLP, agent for the applicant, item 6A, original road allowance application, Rees, roll number 4-16-056. Is David, Mr. Rees, are you? Sorry? Well, sorry, in the interest of time, we've sort of been discussing it here because we are quite a ways behind on a 12-15 soft landing or hard landing, I suppose. Item 6A on your agenda is actually the report from Land and Agreements Coordinator, the original road allowance application, Rees roll 4-16-056. Having read the report, having everyone read that report, one would think, are there any questions? We can have staff present that if you'd like. Yeah, I don't know if you want to present that. Go ahead, I suppose. If you would, please. Thank you. Thanks, Rochelle.
So good morning, committee. So the township received an application to purchase a portion of closed original road allowance that leads to Lake Rosso. The subject road allowance is lying between the township of Muskoka Lakes and the township of Seguin. The portion of closed original road allowance owned by the township of Muskoka Lakes abutting the subject property was stopped up and closed in 1968. And the portion of closed original road allowance owned by the township of Seguin was also stopped up and closed by the former municipality. The process was not completed by the property owner at the time, so the original road allowance was never conveyed and a bylaw was never passed to reopen the road allowance. Additionally, the road allowance was stopped up, closed, and conveyed for 2 properties to the east in the 1960s. Based on staff comments, it is recommended that tentative approval be given. The applicant and the agent are here today as delegates to speak on the matter and answer any questions if needed. So with that being said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Good. Thank you, Rochelle. Okay, David Rees. David is, he's not here. Jamie Hitchon, I see. Is it Jamie Hitchon?
Yes.
Sir, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is an application to purchase a portion of what is already a closed original road allowance. We support the staff recommendation, which is to approve the sale, recommend it to council, that is, and subject to 2 conditions. In our submission, as we also stated back in December, it's a bit of a unique situation in that this is not closing a road, it's already closed. It's just that back in the late 60s, the owner of this property did not go ahead and purchase it for $1. As noted, it's actually the property to the west as well was closed and in fact conveyed. So it's in private ownership. So effectively, there is no means of access to this closed road allowance. So it's different than the ordinary situation where you're concerned about cutting someone off. As to the conditions, we can say that there will be a right-of-way in favor of any property that's actually to the east that needs access here. And in fact, those rights of way or a right of way are already in place in that they were granted to the Pollards who own the land to the east to be able to come off, I think it's Judhaven Road, and access their property through a new driveway. Those currently are rights of way for 21 years less a day. But the parties do intend to move forward and once this is cleared up, make an application for consent to convey these right-of-ways to make them permanent. As to the second condition being recommended, that Seguin also undertakes to sell the property to Mr. Rees. We had early contact with the Township of Seguin, and the staff was receptive to recommending the sale, provided that the Township of Muskoka Lakes did likewise. So we're here today to ask that you adopt the recommendation of staff, recommend it to council, and attempt to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Rees. Committee. Any thoughts, observations, comments? Okay, seeing none, I do have a resolution. Sorry, I found it. Yeah, good, thank you. That's our staff working well together. Moved by Councillor Hayes, seconded by Mayor Harding. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council the tentative approval be given to the application submitted by David Rees, Roll 4-16-056 for the purchase of a portion of closed original road allowance lying in concession 14, part lots 31 and 32, Medora, lying between the Township of Muskoka Lakes and the Township of Seguin. Subject to the conditions of Township Policy C-LS-08, the staff report entitled Application for the Purchase of a Portion of Closed Original Road Allowance and dated July 14, 2021, and subject to the following. That a right-of-way in favor of the benefiting properties of the lands be provided if applicable, and that the Township of Seguin also undertakes the transfer of the portion of the 33-foot portion of closed original road allowance lying within their jurisdiction and requires that a right-of-way over the lands in favor of the benefiting properties be provided if applicable. I would call the vote. All those in favor? Good. Okay, good. Carried. Thank you, committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and members of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Okay, so we're down to item 4C in terms of a delegation. We have both Wallace McKay and Carol Brooks to delegate on and then there's of course a report from Michelle again on the land agreements coordinator as it relates to the license agreement application 2826746 Ontario Limited, Roll 7-8-015 Moon River. So I think in this case, because I hope these folks haven't been waiting forever, but here it is. I'll let certainly Wallace McKay and Carol Brooks, our two delegates, speak to this prior to the report, just because of, in the interest of time. And I'll let either Carol or Wallace, whatever order you'd like to proceed in, you go right ahead. Sorry, Mr. Rhodes? I can't see that. He's not connected. We can't hear you, sir. So Mr. McKay isn't present? Is that his representative? No, we found out this morning it's Mr. Rhodes. Rhodes, R-H-O. R-O-S-E, right? Thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Rose. Okay, we've got that in the record now. So you're connecting to audio, Mr. Rose. We can't quite hear you yet, sir. Are you, is your audio? Well, he's leaving. Okay, Carol, would you go first then, please? You're right there. Can you hear me? Okay, you're on mute as well. Now, Mr. Rose is back. He's got.
Can you hear me?
Carol, you go ahead while Mr. Rose figures his computer out there. You go right ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you and welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for allowing us to speak. Mr. McKay was going to present this, but since he cannot get connected or isn't connected, I will proceed. Thank you for allowing us time to state our case. We are here today to address the application for a dock license for 1168 Moon River Road, Bala, Ontario. As per policy CLS07 license agreement, it states the purpose is to provide a procedure for entering into license agreements for encroachments on township property with the Township of Muskoka Lakes. The policy. It is the general policy of the Township of Muskoka Lakes not to allow encroachments on township road allowances or other municipal property. Notwithstanding the above, the township will receive and consider applications for license agreements for up to a period of 20 years for encroachments on a road allowance or other municipal property associated with an existing use. The key phrase here to consider is associated with an existing use. The dock in question has been associated with this property for generations. The property is designated commercial and has been run as a commercial operation going back to 1937, as far as records left with the property indicate. And as of a survey done June 12, 1981, 35R-7647, it indicates there are floating docks in the area of the current application. No one has ever been denied access to the waterfront. In fact, the owners past and present have maintained this area at their own expense by removing garbage left by others, clearing debris left by trimming of trees, etc. The owners are also required to have insurance on the dock with the township as named insured, which limits the liability of the township, a definite benefit for the township. The prior application was given approval by this committee, August 22nd, 2020. There has been no evidence-based justification provided to support an objection. The facts as they are is: one, this is an historical resort property that has a warm legacy about the Muskokas and particularly Bala. Two, the partners, Wallace McKay and Jerry Rose, purchased the property June 3rd, 2021. They are businessmen from Barrie and they are hands-on at the site. Three, they have made the property into a co-ownership project, which makes cottage ownership more affordable to families. 4, the cottages can be rented by any owner with rules which mirror the township bylaws. 5, the waterfront has been associated with this property since the early 30s. 6, the previous owners, myself and my family, had a dock in place for at least 18 years, and before that with documented evidence. 7, the municipality saw no issue with going forward with a dock license application previously. 8, the previous owners have made significant improvements and investments in time and getting an appraisal done. 9, the municipality specifies what size dock can be put in and where. 10, this will not be exclusive use. The public is not denied access to the waterfront. Based on these facts and in compliance with the policy, as well as the recommendation made in the current staff report, it would appear the only rational principled approach that remains is to approve this application. I welcome your comments and your questions.
Good, thank you. And we'll hold those until after we let Mr. Rose speak. Just so I understand for clarity, though, you do understand, as you've stated, the previous owner, that I would ask as chair, you understand the license agreement process where upon transfer of property, upon a sale, that that this thing resets, that there is no agreement in place, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I understand that.
That's fine. That's fine. That's all we can, and we'll get back to it. Committee will come and ask their questions of you. Please stay there. I'm going to invite Jerry. Sorry, Mr. Rose. Would you please, I guess, state your name and your address if you would be so kind, and go ahead. You have 5 minutes. Okay, you're mute. You're on mute. We can't hear you. Oh, wow. There we go.
Sorry.
There you go. Good.
Sorry, and it's actually, I'm actually on Jerry's computer. It's actually Wallace Mackay. Sorry about that. I think Carol stated the facts. One disclosure I'd like to make is that, and certainly without malice intent, I had actually attached the dock before the proper approvals are in place. I did take the dock off the public property and moved it out 10 feet. And I certainly, out of naivete, I would say, because I've never owned a cottage or a dock, didn't understand really what was involved in moving a dock or moving a dock off-site. I had no idea. So after consultation with some more knowledgeable people, I rectified that. I'm a rule follower. I'm a 20-year corporate banker. I don't break rules. I understand the necessity for these types of municipal requirements. While our presentation may be considered self-serving, I think that it's important to understand that memories are built for children on properties like ours in the Muskokas. So I think it's important that there's a legacy thing here with the dock being attached to the property. And we hope that we certainly get favorable consideration with this application. I don't want to belabor the point. I just wanted you to understand kind of who we were and what we're about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And now I guess what I'll do, I'm wondering, and I know this again is somewhat backwards, but if I would ask Rochelle, our land and agreements coordinator, if she would have a brief comment in terms of her report. Sorry? Oh, actually, so our clerk, Cheryl Mortimer, will be doing that. And I just want to call on Cheryl now. Cheryl?
Good morning. The application that's before you is for a license agreement for a dock situated on a road allowance leading to water on the Moon River, located between lots 10 and 11, concession D, Medora. The proposed recommendation has several conditions, including that the applicant not be permitted to enlarge the dock that is there. And staff have indicated that they are supportive of the application, and I guess we will wait to hear from the remainder of the speakers to see if there's any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And with that, I will invite, I guess in no particular order, there are three delegates this morning, each who will be allowed to speak for 2 minutes. And I would introduce, I suppose, Mr. Michael Flynn. Have we got all three gentlemen? Michael Flynn, Justin Edwards, and Dawson Curry. They're all in the waiting room. Excellent. Thank you, Rochelle. So I would invite Mr. Michael Flynn first to come in to delegate and speak to us on this matter. There he is, connecting by audio. Okay, Michael, there you are. Here you go.
Great. Thanks.
There you go. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me here to speak here, and I'll try to be very quick. I only have 2 minutes. Public spaces are just that. They're public. They should remain open, inviting spaces for community members to use with their family and friends, as per the original intention. The approval of the license agreement, although not legally preventing, will, as a consequence, deter and prevent our community from using this as a public space. No one individual or entity should be assigned the right to place property on a public space. The license agreement, as currently drafted, does not contain a condition preventing the parking of a boat on that dock that is to be attached to the public space, and many residents along the road have felt uninvited to using that space for multiple years. Public spaces involving water access are not for sale. This is setting a very dangerous precedent for all the public waterfront access points throughout the region. It is the responsibility of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, in a particular case, today the General Finance Committee, to protect the limited remaining public spaces located on water throughout our community. There are multiple spaces similar to this one located along the Moon River and throughout the Township of Muskoka Lakes. No one is supportive of encumbering these public water access points, which would fundamentally alter the original intentions forever. Granting the application will encourage others to illegally place docks and public access points, knowing they would eventually be granted a license to do so. This is particularly true for properties that are adjacent to these access points, as such as this license. Even if not the intention of the applicant, this gives the applicant's property the status and value of a waterfront commercial property. They receive this additional value without the tax rate that would normally apply to such a property. I think it's equally important to consider that the history of the dock, which has been mentioned, the dock was illegally placed on the public road allowance prior to the original applicants requesting a license agreement from the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Never once did the owners discuss this with their neighbors or the surrounding community, whether the dock might be a cause of concern for others, nor do they consider the potential liability that dock might have on the public space and for the members of our.
Mr. Flynn, sorry, Mr. Flynn, I'm going to have to say you have 2 minutes, and so I'm going to ask you to really wrap that up. I'm sorry, but that's the rule. So.
Yep, no, understood.
So go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Thanks. So I guess just on that point, I mean, we are of the belief, myself and over 40 community members who have contacted me in the last 24 hours, seeing as we only really found out about this 3 days ago, that was coming to the committee, that this should not be approved. And I guess there's 2 others to speak, so I'll let them speak now. And
thank you. Just a question of you, sir. You live in proximity to this property?
Yes, I live at 1185 Moon River Road, which would be lot 10, which is as described in the application. I'd just like to also point out, Cheryl said that this is between lot 11 and 10. That's not the case. Lot 11 is across the road. In between would be the other property that's on the beach.
Okay, we're going to thank you for that, sir, and we'll let Cheryl clarify that. And just go ahead, Cheryl.
The subject encroachment is on a original road allowance that leads to water, and it lies between lots 10 and 11 in concession G, in concession D. And the survey that was provided and as part of the staff report so indicates, for clarity.
Okay, no real confusion there. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. And again, to point out, your property is adjacent to, I believe, to where the dock is. Mr. Edwards, Justin Edwards, I'll invite you, sir, to, you have the floor. You have 2 minutes. Please go ahead with your delegation. Welcome. Justin?
Hello, can you hear me?
Justin, yes, we can, sir. Welcome. Good morning. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Thank
You
you for
have 2
having me.
minutes.
I'll keep this as brief as possible. I am located 2 doors over from this property on the Moon River. I am 3rd generation on the Moon River, as well as a local realtor. Just from a real estate perspective, the property is currently being offered for sale with 7 cottages plus a main cottage. Each of these owners would then be able to use the dock and the property at their leisure. So instead of one family having access to a small private, we're going to talk about 8 families who all have the option to short-term rental these properties, which is currently being advertised on the listing. So in layman's terms, that means we're going to have 8 different Airbnb cottages, all having water privileges on a dock that is on public land. This will severely hurt the value of our properties in the vicinity and negatively impact the use and enjoyment of the Moon River as a whole. So I think just from that perspective, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Good. Thank you for your comments, and duly noted to committee, and I see them feverishly making notes. So I'm going to thank you, sir, for that. We'll let you out of the out of this call, and we'll invite Dawson Curry, president of the Moon River Property Owners Association, to come on in. And there he is. He's next. Good morning, Dawson. How are you?
Good morning, Glenn. I'm well.
Good.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you. You have 2 minutes, sir. Please go ahead.
Excellent. Well, first off, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm coming to you today in the official capacity as president of the Moon River Property Owners Association. For those who don't know, we represent approximately 50% of the properties, both seasonal and permanent residents on the Moon River. Our board is made up of 8 individuals. We have a good diversity of seasonal as well as permanent residents on the board, as well as new cottage or homeowners and long-term owners as well. Reason I say that is as this proposal came to us, we obviously distributed it amongst the board. It was my ask that everyone look at it thoroughly and come back with their ruling, so to speak, on whether this was in the best interest of the community here on the Moon River. The vote was unanimous, 8 against and 0 for. And there's really, after discussion, there's two primary reasons that I want to make sure that are highlighted today. The first is that there's very limited public access to the Moon River. We have the one park, which most folks know about, Jaspin Park, and this being kind of the second water access that is viable for swimming and recreational activities. With the gradual increase year over year of geese on the Moon River, we are seeing more and more frequency of closures and swimming advisories at Jaspin Park, which is continually plagued accessibility. This is our second option. Privatization of, or I shouldn't say privatization, the addition of a private dock at a very, very small public waterway will limit public access, which is a concern. and the ability for 8 units to house boats, use this from a recreational capacity, not only poses a safety hazard, but will certainly diminish the public's use of this property. The Moon River Property Owners Association has intentions to continue to educate the public that this is a secondary option to Jaspin Park for water access.
Good, Dawson.
Thank you, Glenn.
Okay, so we're pretty much at the 2-minute mark. Is there any last final comment?
Just we appreciate the time, and we really hope that the council takes the potential of limiting public access to a very limited waterway very seriously, and we appreciate the consideration.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your words. So, with that, we'll let you out. Now, we do have an opportunity here where I'm going to turn this over to the General Finance Committee for comment and thoughts. Anyone? I'm seeing hands. Councillor Jaglowitz, welcome. Frank, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I actually have a question for staff. I assume hopefully our clerk will answer it. I'd like to understand why in the license agreements they're not transferable. What was the logic behind the long-term standing that when a property is transferred from one owner to another, it resets? And the second part of that question is, what is our history when this occurs? Has it been in the past that it's generally been carried on, or just to get a flavor of whether this is, as one speaker said, this is a renewal or it is a new application and should be considered as such.
Thank you, Councillor Jaglowitz. So I'll get Cheryl to.
Good morning again. With respect to the request from Councillor Jaglowitz, in this particular case, the Township Council approved the agreement. However, the documents, we needed the survey to be completed and registered and approved, and then we needed the actual agreement drafted and a bylaw passed by council to complete the process. So in this case, before the agreement was signed, the property transferred. So there wasn't a current actual agreement. However, it was approved by council to proceed. With regard to transfer of license agreements are not registered on title. They go with the property owners. And the reason being is a lease agreement versus a license agreement. Lease agreements would be registered on title and they would be part of the property. So that would be a completely different process. With regard to a license agreement, those documents are not registered on title. So they do not go with the property, they go with the people. With respect to the other question that was asked, traditionally, I don't recall that council has ever denied a request when there's been one approved or in place. We do have several license agreements throughout the township, and when matters come before us, we have to deal with them. The situation where property is on the main property is on one side of the road and an encroachment is on a road allowance or shore road allowance on the other side. We have a few other cases where this is in place, so this is not a precedent-setting matter, and I hope that provides further clarity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Okay, hoping that answers your question. Councillor Jaglowitz, I'm going to call on, I believe, Councillor Kelly, then Hayes, then Nishikawa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And through you, I don't know how, I must admit, I really don't understand the notion of allowing somebody to lease or get a license to occupy public property, particularly waterfront property. I also don't know much about the history of the activity that took place on the commercial property that's now making the application. But I just have a couple of observations. It comes to us because there is a new owner. If I understood correctly, and I may not have understood the actual legal titling, but if I understood correctly, there's some sort of shared ownership that's being created here and perhaps being sold off. It seems to me that if I wasn't sure if it was 7 or 9 new owners that presumably have to come back here and make the same application again once they've acquired the real estate or once they've acquired the interest in the property. Number 2, if I were to get comfortable with this, it would have been on the basis of a single owner who is acting in the capacity of I don't know what the word, a watchdog or a custodian of our interest in that land. If this indeed is turning into a shared ownership situation, I'm afraid that we're really just facilitating a commercial transaction using rare public waterfront property as part of the sort of calculated gain, and I'm certainly not in favor of it, and I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor, appreciate that. Councillor Hayes, then Ishikawa, then Councillor Edwards.
Okay, through you. Last July, when this came forward, I did ask why we were having an encroachment that was across the road from the property. And I was informed that this dock has existed for many, many, many years. So I assumed it was a heritage dock, and I, didn't want to take rights away from someone that has always had them. I went back to the air photos, and prior to 2008, I could not see a dock on the water. In 2008, there was a small sliver of a dock over on the left-hand side of the road allowance, which would be towards Fogo Street. In 2013, that small L-shaped dock that was almost on the property line at the left-hand side was now added a large floating swim dock that was just in the curve area. It was tucked into the curved area. And then in 2018, there's a much larger L-shaped dock that is now moved to the other side of the public frontage over towards the Trafalgar Road area. So I don't know whether these were washed out and rebuilt or just moved around, but it appears this dock keeps on moving. I had intentions to go out and take a look, but where it is indicated on our sketch, the little green square box, is that actually where the dock is right now? And is it a small square box? A small square dock? Because it looked as if the other two were swim docks and they were very close to shore, and this is not. And I happened to ask my husband, who lived on Moon River Road some time ago, if there was a dock there, and he said no, when he lived there, there was no dock there. I have heard from the people that did buy our house on Moon River Road, and they said that with the dock there and the people there from the cottages, they feel like they're intruding just to go down and use the public beach. Given this new information, I will wait to hear what staff has to say about where the dock is, how it's configured. I'm not sure I could support this. It's not a historical dock. It's not on neighbors' land where they have accidentally encroached on the property. They have walked across the road and built a dock on our public property. So I don't think I could support this at this time, but I would be interested to hear exactly what the configuration of the dock is and where it is at this time.
Good, thank you very much. And let's invite, based on that commentary, it's almost like we rehearsed this. Let's call Rob Kennedy. He's here. Rob Kennedy is our Chief Bylaw Officer, and I think Rob has attended that location and could speak to this. Rob, welcome to the township, and certainly welcome Today to the General Finance Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I've been to the property a few times just in regards to complaints received through the bylaw department with the dock. And from what I understand, like it's been said, the previous owner did come in for an agreement and then it was sold. So now we're here. But on my first attendance, the dock had been attached to land with a 4x4 piece of wood that was drilled into the rock, and then a small section of dock was attached to that, and then we had the L-shaped dock out into the water. Upon that, and just based on what was going on with council at the time, I spoke to the owner, Mr. McKay, and notified him of the complaint, and that without the agreement, he needed to remove the dock until the agreement was in place. More in a sense, it was kind of like a putting the cart before the horse type of situation in this area. Upon speaking with Mr. McKay, I thought we had an agreement in regards to removing the dock until this came forward. But I guess he brought his contractor over and they pushed it out into the water where it currently lies at this time. It's about probably 10 to 15 feet offshore out into the water. And that's been my involvement in this matter so far. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Councillor Hayes, that answer your questions? Sure, good. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Edwards and the mayor.
Thank you. Want to remind everybody that there's one Muskoka. Sorry. It's interesting because I've known this property for, 30 years and known the previous owners, a few different previous owners. And in fact, it really was a family compound over the years. Again, different owners. I was really somewhat visually shocked at the number of real estate signs on this particular property. So, and shocked at some of the information that's posted on those real estate signs. The first thing that will hit you really close, short-term rentals allowed. That's the number one thing that they advertise on this property, short-term rentals allowed. So it kind of gets my, gander up a little bit. But going back to this discussions this morning, if in fact we are now thinking that we are going to create, this area has always been used by members on the river for different reasons and things. But if we're now going to create a formal public dock situation, are we going to take into consideration parking? So are we now going to have that same parking situation on Moon River Road? Because we didn't address it. We didn't plan for any of that, those uses. I did see that dock pushed out quite far, and I was actually very concerned from a safety perspective, because in 2013 and 2019, when we had flooding, a lot of stuff went over the falls, including floating docks. And it became very, very dangerous. So I'm also concerned that we have a situation that may be a safety issue from boaters because of the way that this has all been laid out. Again, the changes of ownership, and in fact, I would say almost when people show up at their property and they, for instance, were not cottagers in Muskoka in the past, they are very surprised that they don't have all of the rights that they assume or that they were sold by their real estate agreement that don't actually run with the property. So that's a big concern for myself as going forward in any of these situations. This somewhat resort, and I actually don't even know, is there an application coming forward in planning that I didn't see, and how these individual ownership models happen? Because again, in the past, when we've looked at different resort properties, and I would say Tamarack way back when, and all of those things, when we introduced shared ownership, it becomes a whole different animal. So I'm not quite sure where that all sits in this discussion as well. And perhaps I would challenge Mr. Pink to weigh in on some of those conversations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nishikawa. David, would you like to speak to that? You're certainly welcome to do so. There he is. Thank you, David.
Committee. I think all I can comment, I'm not aware of a planning application being submitted on this property, but I can confirm the property is zoned waterfront commercial, WC. That does allow a tourist resort. The municipality would have no authority to control how many owners may acquire a property and are placed on a deed. That is a private matter. However, if they wanted each individual cottage or rental unit to be separately owned on its own individual deed, an application for condominium or subdivision would be needed to do so. And again, staff's not aware of any of those proposals coming forward at this time.
Thank you, David. I wonder if you could explain waterfront. It's a zoned commercial waterfront, yet it actually doesn't have any. Is that the view? Somehow we've included the view in their listing or the reference. I wonder if you could clarify that.
Certainly, through you. The official plan defines and identifies the waterfront designation. It's all lands generally within 500 feet of any navigable waterway or river. So we do have some zones, waterfront residential zones that are just backlots that do not, in fact, contain water frontage, but yet are still within the waterfront designation. They still have a character or a physical or a functional relationship to the waterfront they're in close proximity to, but they may not contain direct water frontage.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Councillor Edwards and then the mayor. I'll wrap this up.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm only getting partial screen. I'm not seeing everyone. I'm only getting 12 where I normally get 25. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem as well. But hearing this and the lots being sold and that I am against and that leasing this out, I think it's just a compound problem. It will only get worse, and the local residents will not be allowed to use it. So I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'll give the last word to the mayor.
Thank you very much. Like Councillor Hayes, I also went on the air photos and the docks from 2008 to 2013 to 2018. They keep changing configurations, and I'm not quite sure what was there or what's not there. The 2013 dock, I think, is the most appropriate. It seems to match the sketch in our proposal, which is a small, maybe a 10 by 10 or a 12 by 12 dock. You know, this is a co-ownership agreement. There is, as the property is being sold, it's being sold with a co-ownership. They don't advertise that it is, you get a dock or anything else. So people are aware of what they're purchasing in this new sale. I guess my perspective is a large dock that would allow boats to be used with this property does not fly with me. However, understanding that we have, however, 6 or 8 cottages on the other side of the road, that people typically in Muskoka like to be able to come down to a beachfront or to be able to access the water, I wouldn't be opposed to a small swim dock. And if we have the ability to put into our conditions of a license of occupation, that the dock is available to the public, number one, and it's not exclusive use. And number two, that no boats would be moored to said dock. Basically, they could create a small swim dock, which would allow the public access. And I think from a safety perspective, it works, but certainly no boats. So that's where I would go in its L configuration or however it looks right now. I would not be in favor, especially allowing boats to be parked there and moored there. So if it had some public element to it and not exclusive use, I'm okay.
Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'm just going to remind committee that we are going forward with a recreation plan currently. And if we in fact are wanting to discuss this on or add this to the list of areas and ideas that we're going to come forward, it should happen within that, that document. This is much bigger than just a one-off, and an understanding, again, even the parking, the impact. But we are, you know, engaged in this master plan now. So let's follow through with it and add this to the list of possibilities, but also allowing from the bigger picture a full understanding of all the impacts that this council and staff need to understand. So we're not getting it right or wrong. Like we know that there is a prescription in place. Right now, there isn't a prescription in place from my perspective. And so, again, allow this to go through the process of our excuse me, the planning that we're doing right now.
Good, thank you, thank you. And seeing no other hands, I just would make a final comment or a comment from my own perspective. I was not made aware at the time when we made our decision a year ago now on this particular piece that this property was even for sale. Should that have any bearing on me? Am I supposed to approach this with an open mind? Yes, I am. But I do think that, you know, to someone's earlier point, 17 years, 18 years, been here for a long time. That's one thing. It's quite another thing to sell it and start this thing all over again. I think what I'm hearing is that the reset piece isn't something that many on this committee want to entertain. But that having been said, that's sort of a final word. I see no other hands. I do have a motion here. It's moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved, the General and Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that the application for a license agreement for a dock situated on a portion of an original road allowance known as Moon River Road, lying between lots 10 and 11, concession D, Medora, described as Part 1 on Plan 35R-26498, 2826746 Ontario Limited, Rural 7-8-015, be approved in accordance with Township Council Policy C-LS-07 and subject to the following conditions. That any repairs and maintenance to the dock be in accordance with the building code and subject to the approval of the chief building official. That an increase in the size of the dock be prohibited. That no further development be carried out on the subject road allowance by the applicants. That the public use of the subject road allowance not be restricted in any way. That no parking on Moon River Road in the vicinity of the subject road allowance be implemented based on a recommendation by the Director of Public Works, and that once all conditions have been fulfilled, a bylaw be presented to Council at a future meeting to authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute the subject license agreement. Sorry, so I'm going to ask Councillor Kelly's got a question now. The Mayor did make a statement about we could add on here, I suppose, and no boat parking, but I'm not sure. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
I just have a quick question. If this is voted no, what happens to the existing dock? Can we move to have it removed?
Yeah, Mr. Kennedy, Rob Kennedy, could you answer that, please? I suppose, maybe, sure. Rob?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, that would be the next step. We would just work with the owner to get it removed. The only hang up is if they put it out in the water. I'm not sure what our jurisdiction would be in that end.
Which, if I might expand on that, then it would be a raft.
Correct, and it would fall under the Coast Guard though, not us.
Okay. Okay, well, I guess that's, we're going to cross that raft when we come to it. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Okay. All those opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, committee. That's defeated. Okay, so it's 5 after 12. That ends that particular piece. We have a couple more items under 5 under Public Works. I want to say that we are very much under the time constraint today for this meeting to be over to get to council for a 1 o'clock start. Now, I think I might formally ask here and now, because this happened last month as well. And it was a pressure for some. What is our plan? I mean, it's hard to know what our agenda looks like in terms of completion, but I can't imagine us being done before at least 1 o'clock, which do we then recess and meet back at council at 2, or can we do something formally? Because I think what I don't want to do is I saw it last month. It really rushed and compressed everything in the last third of our General and Finance Committee meeting. And I don't think I want to see that again. At least I felt it. And certainly I've heard from others. So it's 10 after 12. There's lunch to be considered. And we've probably got an hour and a half of things to get through here. I would look to staff for some sort of direction on that if I could. Totally impromptu. Okay, Derek.
So, Mr. Chair, staff are in the hands of committee. If you want to take a brief lunch break and then come back at it, and we can delay the start of the council meeting this afternoon. I don't know if Ms. Mortimer has any further comments she'd like to add to that, but really it's we look for direction from committee. Thank you.
It appears to be at our discretion. So I'm seeing Councilor Nishikawa has a comment. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually feel that we can carry on to 12:30 and get most of this completed. I appreciate the staff reports that have come forward. They're there for us to read. If we have any questions, we can move that forward. But really, I think we can get through a lot of this by 12:30 and then make a call from there.
That's good. And that isn't my call. That's all of yours. So that's a wonderful observation. We've discussed it here. Councilor Roberts, go ahead.
Just very quickly, I think we should push through to 12:30 and then we should take 1 hour break, health break. I don't want to be sitting here all day. So 1 hour health break at 12:30 and then go to council.
Okay, Mayor, you had a comment? No? Okay, good. Okay, so then we'll do that. We'll just press on. Thank you for that. Item 5B, which is the report from Director Becking, Public Works Re Ann Street Boat Launch, Walker's Point. I guess if we follow that logic, we've all read the report. Would committee, if we don't hear from Director Becking, does committee have thoughts, comments on that? Any show of hands? I see none. I say I'm going to read a resolution. So given that, now I just have to get these in order. There it is. I do want to state, and I haven't read this, and I apologize in terms of procedure. The motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting. And in terms of voting, members shall physically raise their hand until the chair has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk. This is not considered a recorded vote, just for procedure. Okay, I have a motion here moved by Councillor Bridgman, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that bylaw 2021-107, the purpose and effect of which is to add the Ann Street boat launch to Schedule E of bylaw 2003-29 in order to permit limited commercial use of that boat launch, be given 3 readings. All those in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you, committee.
Chair Zavitz, if I may, just one quick question on that. Just want to know what kind of notification we're given to all the property owners and the people in the area. Let's just be careful about Walker's Point and rushing to. So maybe we can have that come back when we find out in council perspective.
Certainly. So interesting. So coming back to council as it relates to Walker's Point, it isn't a point coming forward to council. So I suppose it could come under new business this afternoon. One might.
No, I don't need it under new business. My comment being that we have a greater summary and just want to make sure the minutes are reflective that come council in August. We truly understand before we pass this, because this is just at general committee, But when it comes to council, we truly have a greater appreciation to how the public in the area have been notified about this.
Okay, so I might ask Director Becking, has there been any notification, and again, here we're cutting corners, but any notification to the community, Director Becking?
None through staff, Mr. Chairman.
Is that a
Excuse me,
Sorry, Councilor.
and that Chair Zavich, can I talk to the fire chief for a second? There's a transformer on the Windermere Road that's smoking. I think there's a branch into it.
over it.
And I've been trying to get a hold of the township, and everyone's in the meeting.
And you can smell it. It smells.
Yeah.
I've got the poll number.
And it's on poll.
CNB30H. Or, yeah, could be.
So if you could get some of the.
It's right on the curve where the rock is on the Windermere Road. If you're coming from the community center, you turn past the curve, and on the left-hand side, that next fire hydro pole, it's at the top of the hydro pole, and the branch is hanging over it. The branch is burning, and there's smoke coming up.
I'm gonna let Ryan, Chief Morrell, handle this. One might suppose 911. So Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would encourage you to call 911. My internet connection here is unstable at the office, so it's in and out.
Okay.
Please call 911 and then we will dispatch people.
Okay,
directly.
because somebody came to the house to tell us. Okay, I'll call 911.
Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as it relates to what the mayor has, I'm just going to circle back to that for a minute. There's been no notice. So be it resolved that which we just carried, add to schedule of the bylaw in order to permit limited. I guess we would have to ask the question of staff. Does the Schedule E of bylaw 2003-29 allow for or requirement of public notice, notwithstanding that we should? Who could answer that? David? Ken? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Ken?
Mr. Chairman, there's nothing in the bylaw that requires public notification. The bylaw itself and schedules there too have been modified by council on several occasions since my joining the township. It would be entirely appropriate for committee to recommend that the intention to pass the bylaw be posted on the township website or such other medium as would be appropriate in the circumstance.
Okay, and I would imagine, looking at committee and the screen, that you would have that appetite to do so. I'm wondering, sorry? Yeah, well, that may not be enough. I guess what we're saying is it would certainly be posted on the agenda for next month, but people may not see that. So does this committee want, I mean, we'd have to add it in here, this resolution, and revise the resolution such that it says a public notice is warranted and required. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. I don't need to change the resolution. I believe we can provide direction to staff if this committee are in favor. What I would recommend is a notice that is posted, especially at the mouth of the boat ramp in particular, that would explain that we are contemplating adding light commercial activity to this. Let's not create another problem as we had for the first hour and 45 minutes of this meeting, is my comment.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Just so that you know, when it went from allowing light commercial to not allowing light commercial, there was nothing handed out to the public. People were just surprised when they showed up that something that they had always used was no longer available to them. So I will make sure that the word is spread.
Okay, and I've duly noted it on the resolution that was carried here today about notice to public. I know. Okay, so I'm going to ask committee here now. Are you? I don't want any comment. Are you either for or against public comment? Let's say for. We all like to have public notification to somehow that that this is happening at Ann Street. The mayor is going yes. Okay. Other people want to talk. So. Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah. Okay, so I think in a more formal sense, because I don't think it should be up to one counselor to go around and tell people door to door. Personally, I think we need to be more fulsome. I believe that's the mayor's message. So I'm going to ask folks here and now, do you want us to revise this motion to include a requirement to notify the public in that area of this change? A consensus of committee is what I'm asking for here and now. So we've already passed it. I'm looking for a concept, looking for a nodding of heads. I'm looking for, I see Councillor Roberts, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Nishikawa, Bridgman, Mazan, thumbs up over here. Okay, great, guys. Thank you so much.
For the sign at the site.
For the sign at the site, that is sufficient. Notice to public sign at site. Thank you very much, committee. We'll move on now then to item 5C, report from the Director of Public Works regarding the Milford Bay Bridge replacement change proposal. There is a report. Again, team, I guess we'll, if there are no questions of this and no concerns, I'll read a resolution. And I see none. So I'm going to read this. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. That's not it. These are not in the good order, right?
This one has an information report.
So we don't actually have a. Oh,
The report about the Milford Bay Bridge is an information report.
oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. So there is actually no resolution to move on that. There was just the report, and it seems the committee has decided to not hear that report and read it instead. So I'm then going to move on to item 5D. Again, a report from Director Becking on Public Works on a request to ban fires on certain lands adjacent to the Torrance Barrens Conservation Reserve. And again, I look to committee for that. If there's any discussion required, I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, I'm going to read this resolution gladly. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommended Township Council to give 3 readings to a bylaw to ban outdoor fires on township-owned lands lying in concessions 11 and 12, lots 12 through 17 inclusive, former Township of Wood. All those in favor? Good, that would be unanimous. Thank you, committee. Okay, the next item is that's Torrance Barrens, so that's that. Item 6. 6C. Item 6C is a report from our Land and Agreements Coordinator regarding a request for water access on road allowance across from Walker's Point Fire Hall, Roll 8-4-0070-01 on Lake Muskoka. Does anyone have any comments on that? I'm seeing none. Okay, moved by Councillor Jaglowitz, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommended Township Council that the proposal to place picnic tables, planter boxes, signage, and complete landscaping on a road allowance leading to Lake Muskoka, concession 3 and 4, lot 9, Wood, and use of the old Walker's Point Fire Hall parking lot for water access be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, the township provides picnic tables to be used at the subject property. 2, the township provides parking and water access signage to be placed along Walker's Point Road. 3, the types of landscaping to be conducted at the subject property during the summer months be subject to the approval of the Director of Public Works. 4, the neighboring property owners be consulted. And 5, that an agreement between the parties respecting ongoing maintenance and other responsibilities, including the provision of insurance, training, and a waiver in favor of the township, and that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute same. All those in favor? Good, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Okay, we have a report from Mark Donaldson, the Director of Financial Services, regarding a reserves bylaw update. Quite a shame if we can't hear this, but a lot of work went into that. It's a great piece. Again, has everyone read this report and done their homework? Councillor Jaglowitz, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize for taking time, but there was one section I wanted to ask the director. In the corporate policy, in item number 6, you refer to an interest rate to be charged on loans that are internal loans, but nowhere in that corporate policy do you define when a corporate loan is appropriate and how it is to be managed. Was that just an oversight, or is that something you could add to it?
Thank you, Chair. Question from Councillor Jaglowitz. So it was not specifically addressed. I think I would consider it to be something that we could address as the situation arose. Certainly our situation with reserves at this time are really kind of geared towards meeting expenditure requirements, and perhaps not so much in terms of the ability to borrow from our own internal reserves. But there was language in the previous or the current policy which was very prescriptive. So the intent was really just to create language that provided some additional flexibility from the rates that were in the current policy. I think it talked about 1.8%. There was some very specific language. So certainly something that we can address and update if that would provide better direction for that policy in terms of those circumstances.
So the supplementary, so the existing circumstance before a loan can be made, it'd have to come through council. Is that correct? This policy does not authorize borrowing from reserve funds.
Yeah, so through the chair, absolutely. That would be something that we would want council approval on before that would take place. I would think that would be prudent.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Councillor Hayes and Councillor Roberts.
Through you, a question to Mr. Donaldson. I noticed that wharfs, docks, and landings are not specifically addressed in here. I'm thinking that they are in there somewhere, but given the costs to replace them or repair them, it should be something that we should be considering. So if you could tell me where it is in there, or should we be adding it at some point?
Mark?
Thank you, through the chair. So currently in our capital plan, docks and wharves are typically budgeted under parks. So those would be part of the parks, recreation, and trails, the new reserve for that. We could certainly add that to the purpose or to the description to make that clearer if that's something that the committee would like to see for clarity.
Okay, good. Taken under advisement. Thank you, Mark. Councillor Roberts.
And thank you, and through you, Chair. On page, let me just bring it up here. Page 59, near the bottom, it talks about multiple complaints and repeat offenders. I guess it pertains to the issuance of property standards or stop work orders. The amount there is pretty minor for repeat violators, if I'm reading this correctly. Can we increase this to a more substantial amount for multiple complaints and repeat violators?
I believe that's in the next, it's in the next report.
Was that? That's not the same one? Okay, I'm sorry. I was page 59, okay. Okay, go ahead. Then I'll bring it up in the next report.
Oh, you're already talking about, we're just simply on the reserves piece right now.
Okay, sorry.
Then we'll get to that. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, good. And Mark, thank you, sir. I know that a lot of work went into this and a lot of great insight. So we'll get to that, as you would well know. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that bylaw 2021-XXX being a bylaw which identifies and establishes reserve funds for certain purposes, as outlined in the staff report entitled Township Reserves Bylaw Update dated July, be given 3 readings, and that the proposed updated Township Policy C-FS-003 reserves be approved. All those in favor? Good, thank you. Carried. Okay, as it relates to item 6E, report from the Director of Financial Services, fees and charges bylaw update. So again, I would ask committee questions. Councillor Roberts, do you want to speak? There you go, sir. Go ahead. Then the mayor.
Thank you. And through your chair, sorry for jumping the gun on that one. So I'm just basically, I just wondering if for repeat offenders and violators, if the fees can be raised to more significant amount just as a deterrent. And that's my question.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I'm not sure who would speak to that. I'm not sure it's under Mark's purview. CAO, is there or clerk, is there a vehicle for contemplation? Yeah, Derek's got his hand up. Thank you, Derek, and I'll let Derek speak to that.
Mr. Chair, if the councillor could provide some additional clarification as to which schedule, if it's related to an enforcement matter, I think that perhaps Mr. Pink or Mr. Kennedy could provide some further detail. Thank you.
It's schedule D, and I'll go back. I believe it's on page 59. So I'll take 9 in here, and it's under attached informing of the part of bylaw. So it's a fee description. It's at the bottom of page 59. And it talks about multiple complaints and repeat violations.
There's David right there. Thank you, David. David, you want to speak to that, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think the short answer is essentially yes, that could be raised at the committee's discretion. I don't know if Mr. Kennedy wishes to add anything further to that, but I believe it can be raised.
Rob, if you're certainly welcome to comment, sir.
Yeah, through the chair. At this point, we have multiple complaints listed at $100 per complaint, and then any repeat violations is listed right now at $500. So that the second portion is if there is a violation of bylaws within for 2 occasions within a 3-year period, that's where the $500 will kick in. The multiple complaints will come from if we receive a whole bunch of complaints from one particular person or one particular property about multiple areas, and bylaw keeps attending and we keep finding nothing wrong. At a certain point, we can start issuing those pretty much charges on that property owner for our time being essentially wasted in that respect. Thank you. But so as it stands, we can definitely increase it if council or committee.
Okay, Gord, is that sort of?
Yeah, no, well, I think we should raise it $100. I think the loaded rate for 1 hour is more than $100 plus vehicle and stuff like that for multiple occurrences. And it's
okay.
All right, so I don't know how we go forward with this.
Okay, this bylaw is to amend it, which establishes the requirements of the payment of various fees and charges. It says various. I mean, is that something we can speak to as we're going to be discussing bylaw enforcement later in this cycle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bylaw enforcement and planning.
I'm going to look to the CAO on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I note that this is a proposed bylaw that's going to go through committee back to council in August. So if there is a desire of committee for staff to look at that and update that particular section, we'd be happy to do so.
Councilor
I wish that, yes.
Good. That's a good answer. Thank you. Mayor Harding and then Councilor Hayes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Donaldson, for a great report. 2 areas I want to focus on. One of them is our shore road allowance in particular, and our sale at I think $1.50 a foot. People buying waterfront property today on our big lakes in particular is paying $10,000 per linear foot. Even if you divide it up at a 200-foot lot by 200-foot deep, let's say as an average size lot, that's $50 a square foot that they're paying for that waterfront lot. We are giving away and selling this extremely cheap, and people want it for lot coverage on a regular basis. So I really think we could be at minimum $3 to $4 a square foot and still have it as bargain basement, in my opinion, on those couple of issues. The other issue, there it is, sorry, that I do have a question about, we're changing our tax bill printed repeat of tax bills from $20 to $25. It probably is the number one complaint when things get lost in the mail, tax bills get lost. We do not yet have the ability for an online print my own tax bill. And from a perspective of until we get such a system, I struggle with the cost of $25 for something that's got lost in the mail. And we do know that that happens regularly and no issue with our taxpayers' issues. So I would almost go down to $10 for a duplicate of the tax bill. People who need it, they need it fundamentally for whatever the reason is. And I also want to really get online that you can print it out individually without having to charge somebody. So those are my two comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Duly noted. Councillor Hayes?
Thank you. I think the mayor and I are on the same lines today. I had also thought that selling the shore road allowances was very cost effective for those buying them. And given that they are our shore road allowances, if you choose not to buy them, should you not get a rental charge for using them? Just putting it out there, something to think about for the future. I really do have some questions. So for the fire safety plan and review and approval on page 57, is that for commercial or is that for homes as well? Also, where is it? If I'm either. Okay, let's go with that one until I find the other one.
Yeah, fire safety plans are required of through the chair. They're required of assembly occupancies, and in certain cases where we have more than 300 people that are at like a camp. So those are commercial. So that is a commercial charge applied commercially.
Councillor Hayes?
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that if somebody had a fire plan at a house and they wanted a fireman to look at them, then they weren't going to be charging them in any way. And I can't find the other one. So we'll let it go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And as I think to the CAO's earlier comment, might we in aggregate consider for the next month, as this comes to council, some thoughts, some suggestions as the mayor's brought forward, as Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hayes. Is that viable, or do you want to keep this in GNF for another month, hold it back, and be more fulsome, if you will, in a motion that will bring forward a new bylaw? So I'm going to let the CEO speak to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I believe the Director of Finance has brought the reserve matter along with this bylaw matter to committee now, so that it does go through council in August. These are important steps that he's taking ahead of time to preload budget discussions. So the fees are proposed to take effect in 2022. So what I think we're looking for today is committee consensus on the proposed suggestions of the mayor along with Councillor Roberts. Those are the only sort of two areas or two members that I think that have brought requested second looks, if you will, into various matters, and staff are happy to do that. But we'd like to bring the matter back to council for consideration in August. I don't know if Mr. Donaldson has any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, would you like to comment, or is that?
Well, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge and agree with CAO Hammond. I believe that I think that the real intent of this is to revisit these fees that haven't been addressed in quite some time and ensure that they are properly set as we enter our budget process.
Good. Okay, well, thank you. And then I think, given that I see no other hands, I believe the committee is supportive of that direction to move forward. As I've got this to read, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Hayes. Be it resolved, the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that bylaw 2021-XXX, being a bylaw to amend 2018-087, which establishes the requirements of the payment of various fees and charges for information, services, activities, and use of township property as outlined in the staff report entitled Bylaw to Update Township User Fees and Charges dated July 14, 2021 be given 3 readings, and that policy C-FS-16 user fees and charges be approved. All those in favor? Good, thank you, committee.
I would like some clarity on the allowance.
On the,
The cost of allowance.
oh, okay, so there is just a clarification, a clarification point here from the clerk. On the road allowance, the aspect of charges, does one provide more direction? Are you looking for us to add something to this resolution? Or staff, just more clarification? Maybe I'll let the CEO speak to that. I don't know. What's that? Oh, sorry. So Cheryl.
I can speak.
Okay, so I'm going to give the floor to Cheryl. Thank you.
I'm just looking for some clarity on what the direction is with respect to the road allowances. We did a review, and based on areas or surrounding us, those were what the rates were. They've all been increased, so I'm kind of looking for direction from committee on what it is you're looking for.
That's great. Good, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, for that clarity. Maybe I'd go right back to the mayor, and perhaps Mayor, just to reinforce or reiterate what you've said. If that's, then we'll see if staff or a committee believes that that's the way to go.
Thank you for that. You know, again, I'm not into being too punitive. People do like to buy the road allowances. Oftentimes, again, it increases their lot coverage and their lot size, which gives them additional rights. I truly believe that even if we were to change it to, let's be a conservative, $3 a foot at this particular time, or $3.50, we would be in far better shape and provide some additional money to recover without offending people. So I'm happy to put that as a suggestion forward, just knowing what our general waterfront properties are worth.
Oh, Cheryl, does that help you? Sorry?
We'll look at the other areas again.
Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll review the other areas again. Essentially, you've just committed to a doubling of the fee, so she'll look at that. We'll look at that. Okay, Councillor Nishikawa.
I mostly wanted to say that I think that we as committee members have the opportunity over the next month to send our concerns and questions to various staff members, including Ms. Mortimer. I just think that we should move on. And in fact, I'm going to also request that lunch be reduced to 45 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I think we're very close to being where we need to be, unless you want to stop now, thinking that we may want to proceed. The next item, which is 6F, which is a memorandum from the Integrity Commissioner, read the Code of Conduct Rules for Citizen Members of the Township of Muskoka Lakes Committees. I refer you all to that memorandum, and I would challenge you all that you've read it and comprehend it and understand it. And I think that's really the process today. There will likely be a further, perhaps in-person discussion down the road, but Cheryl has her hand up. Cheryl, go ahead.
Just briefly, this is a memo for information at this time for members of local boards and committees. The Integrity Commissioner will be coming either in August or September with respect to her annual report to council and possible amendments recommended for a code of conduct, and questions can be answered then by the Integrity Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Councillor Bridgman, you have your hand.
Just a question, thank you, through you, Chair Zavitz. Is this memorandum being sent to everybody who's on every board and every volunteer on every committee? I believe we should be distributing this to everyone.
The answer is yes to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, seeing no other hands up, I'm going to move to item 7A, Community Services, which is Community Fire Parks and Trails. We have a report from the fire chief regarding the proposed fire emergency response incident fee recovery bylaw. There is a report and of course an appendix. Having presumed everyone's read it, I don't know. Are there any questions? Has anyone got questions for Chief Morrell? Okay, seeing none. Ryan, I guess that's a good job. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Bridgman. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Council that 3 readings be given to bylaw 2021-077 as outlined in the staff report entitled Proposed Fire/Emergency Response Incident Fee Recovery Bylaw and dated July 14th, 2021. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you, committee. Okay, so we now have item 8. Sorry, I'll accept into the record the minutes of the Public Library Board meeting held on May 11th, 2021. Thank you for your constant good works. Item 8A is a report on economic development and grants from our Corey Moore, delegation of authority regarding grants. I have a resolution here. Has anyone got any questions of Corey Moore? He's here. Corey, I think you're a bit off the hook there. I'm going to read this resolution moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Jaglowitz. Be it resolved that the General Finance Committee recommend to Township Council that the delegations of authority to staff for grant application submissions as outlined in the staff report entitled Delegation of Authority Grants and dated July 14th, 2021 be approved. All those in favor? Good. Thank you. Carried. Okay, so then there's minutes of the economic justice. I'll accept those minutes into the record the public meeting of the Economic Development Grants Committee. I suppose we could forego district municipality updates and community updates for council this afternoon under new business, perhaps. If there's an appetite for that, nodding of heads. Yes, I see Councillor Jaglowitz. You go right ahead, sir.
Yes, I have some important things. Are you saying it'll be included in the council meeting?
I guess I'd need some sort of a consensus of that. Is that something that we can do? Again,
If not, I'd like to
the clerk?
report. I'd like to report.
Okay, so the clerk is saying yes to this afternoon at council, Councillor Jaglowitz. If that's possible, all 4 district folks could report to us then.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's just there were 3 very important things that went through Finance Committee. last month.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Please. Absolutely. I do want to draw quick attention before we sign off to the general information and correspondence. We've tried to listen to you all and try to, in aggregate, try to group these into some semblance of normalcy that makes more sense. So hopefully that's a work in progress. You'll see that we've revised them and where possible, grouped them together. Anyway, that's that. I see 2 councillors have their hands up, and then I'll read a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hayes and then Councillor Edwards. Go ahead.
Quick under new business, the Gypsy Moths. Would it be possible to put, have council all have the same information so that they are telling the taxpayers the same thing? And I guess, I don't know how we would go about doing that, but if we could do that before next year, that would be something that I think our taxpayers would appreciate.
Good point. Taken under advisement here. I see some pens moving. That's great news. That information, you're right. And I think it's the same song sheet, right? We all need to have that same messaging out, whatever that messaging is, if it's anything or something. I'm going to let the CAO chime in. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, and I can have confirmed this with Mr. Moore, but my understanding is that information that we received from the district through Watershed Council as to Watershed Council's recommendations on how to deal with the gypsy moth. I believe that's on our website. If it's not, it will be. And so that if members of council do receive questions or comments in that regard, they can refer the citizens to the website. Thank you.
Good, thank you for that. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Mazan, then we're gonna call it.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. On 11E and 11G, I would hope that we could send a resolution and that's supporting them. 11E is the PSA testing for men. And G is capital gains on primary residence. And I think that is very, very, and that's something that we should be looking at. I just wanted to know what the committee thought. Thank you.
Okay, committee, do you have any, well, certainly, who wouldn't, right? And again, not wanting to rush through that, perhaps that would be something that we can bring, well, I'll ask the committee. Here we are. Councillor Mazan, then Councillor Nishikawa. Susan, you're on mute.
Okay, hold on. Thank you, and through you, I think I'm having that technical glitch where I'm muting and unmuting myself. I just was adding to Councillor Hayes' comments. Yes, clearly the gypsy moths, which I'm now told are supposed to be called LDDs. I think there's a new movement to rename them, but I think it is actually on our website. And the comments I've had is to redirect towards the Watershed Council. So just nothing valuable there other than I do believe it's on our website. Thanks.
Thank you for that confirmation. Councillor Nishikawa, then Councillor Hayes.
Again, I want to take the opportunity to share my feeling. There's a number of issues that after I see this list that I would be asking staff to bring forward, but I will do that through a procedure where we discuss it with our clerk or make the recommendation for clerk. And all I'm saying is that's the next step. I hope that we're not going to try to negotiate any of these items right now.
Good. Okay, good thoughts. Councillor Hayes.
Hi. I just wanted to say is if Linda Nixon's sister-in-law. I'm sorry about that.
Today.
I would support Councillor Edwards. I would second E and G going forward.
Okay, thank you for that. And again, I almost wonder if this isn't something we could under new business. Can we discuss this at council? No?
No, don't have to.
Yeah, so if we get it, so it's this afternoon? No, sorry. So if we get a mover and a seconder, and again, it could come to the next council meeting. My only concern is there's quite a number of them all the way to you. Has everyone taken the time to, all of a sudden, we're going to put two through, and perhaps there's others that would be of interest, I think, to what Councillor Nishikawa had just indicated. So, okay, then let's just reach out to Cheryl. Okay, that's great. That's a great solution, and I would welcome and challenge everyone to do that. Mayor Harding.
Thank you. Just to chime in on that. So Councillor Evers has requested, again, procedurally, if you want to move something, you bring a seconder, send that to the clerk, and it will show up on an agenda. So the correspondence is there. We've seen a couple. Councillor Mazan is seconding, or Councillor Hayes would second Councillor Edwards at this point, so they can show up on the next and go directly to council agenda next time. And I'm happy to, again, facilitate those as well. So
and that what is the process, right on, exactly. So that's what's happening. Thank you for that. Okay, given that, and again, apologies for the day, I would read a resolution at 12:50. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:50 p.m. and the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, August the 11th at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically from the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, so we will see everyone for a council meeting at 2:00. That's a question more than an answer. Look at everyone. What do you think? Does everybody, no,
No, 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to get back to Torrance in 45 minutes and have lunch. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so it's going to be 45 minutes would make it
1:45, please.
I'm sorry? So 1:45.
Yeah.
1:45 it is. Thank you. See you then.